everybody, welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. I'm Aurora, and today's class is Level 2, Lesson 6. In fact, if I pull up my notes so I can name this correctly, it is called The Sun, DNA, Light, and Interdimensional Ethics. Now, you guys who are in this class, also, Cheeky is talking over here, so usually we wait in order to have a little break to say hi to her, but she's right down here. So let's just begin class by saying hi. Hi, 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 hi. It's way too hot outside. She cannot go outside right now. It's like 1,000 degrees out there. So, and she's already had all bribes and all nourishment. So we don't need anything extra. Okay. And she's on a diet. She's a little chubby. Okay. So, refocusing back. As always, I send out my notes that I wrote from materials that I innovated over 10 years ago at this point. And please know that those, pronouncements or guidance about how to go through life was appropriate for that time, but is not appropriate for right now at all. In fact, I have my updated notes. So at the end of this class, I'll send out the updated notes that basically say, of course, none of this is appropriate for the current battle conditions in our world, all right? Because I talk a lot about unconditional love and allowing others their freedom to do what they need to do, and giving them space in their own life, like saying, like, you do you, I do me. But what you have to comprehend is that in the present level of non-natural interconnectedness, there is no longer such a thing as you do you and I do me, because everybody is doing everybody else. So I have many, so gird your loins, prepare for rant incoming. And when people hear that phrase, gird your loins, they think that it has to do with sex or something like that. It doesn't, because it has the word loins in there. This is like from the biblical times when men were going into battle and they used to wear like long garments, like males used to wear long garments, so that their skirts would not get caught up in battle. They used to kind of like tie it around their waist. That's called gird your loins. Get ready for battle. All right. So get ready for what I'm going to talk about here. So also, please understand that we're talking about this. I'm going to share this video after it's recorded on a captured platform. So of course, I do these lectures with my class in this private video conference, but then I will place it publicly available for other people to watch on the captured platform. And I have had problems in the past with my videos being flagged for talking about the things that are in this curriculum and have been in there for 10 years. Specifically, this concept, this one right down here, that was apparently too accurate and too incendiary for some appetites. They clutched their pearls and fanned themselves, and possibly their corsets popped open. They were so upset. So I can't talk about those things effectively. So instead, we're going to talk about things that are purely fictional today. We're going to talk about a fictional reality where these things are occurring, okay? So please recognize that everything that I'm talking about today is a fictional, theoretical reality. And please forgive me if I slip in any way in order to imply that it's happening in the present here and now. We're just a book club talking about things that happen in a pretend land, okay? So in pretend land. Okay, so let's talk about what DNA is in pretend land and how it behaves. So the first thing is, please know that the scientists of pretend land are totally out to lunch. Like, they don't know or comprehend at all what DNA is and what it is doing. I am an interdimensional visitor, and I have come here with an encyclopedic knowledge of higher dimensional math, higher dimensional reality, time mechanics, for lack of a better word, and also innate and profound knowledge about what DNA is, what its purpose is, what it is doing, and how it is connected to time. And the scientists of pretend land are completely ignorant of all of those things and crushingly have not been interested in learning from me. Now, don't worry, I'm very resilient, so I'm not really crushed, but very disappointingly, because I came here with a lot of not good humor, but like in positive giving generosity, spiritual generosity. Like, oh, I know all this stuff and I'll share it with you. And not only has there been very, I want to say, a deafening silence, like a great amount of severe disinterest in what I have to share, but active hostility, because the scientists of pretend land don't like learning about this stuff because it has a lot of ethical and moral implications. That means that they are profoundly evil people doing immensely destructive things. Of course, they wouldn't want to know about those things. And that is specifically because of this concept. So, just as I talk about how with your mind, you're not swimming around in your own private kiddie pool, but your mind has an impact on other organisms and on the fabric of events or of reality itself, so too is it with DNA. And we'll talk about the mind's influence on DNA's behavior and DNA's behavior's influence on time today. All of this will be contextualized with the eventuality of you mastering the flying rainbow lasagna, which is a new way to move and dance with your DNA that gives you greater levels of freedom. And let's begin with that because it's a very, very positive thing. Again, if you see me squinting, it's because I'm like trying to read my little notes over here. But this is all about the importance of flying rainbow lasagna, that since I invented this in 2001, it made it possible for humans who had been very limited by the genetic modifications that have been done to the species over many millennia for consciousness reduction and for freedom reduction to bypass or supersede the limitations that have been placed within the body that have been holding humans back. The ability to dance in certain patterns with your DNA. And when I move my hands like this, like I'm literally doing my dance, I'm mirroring with my hands what my DNA does. The ability to think certain thoughts was diminished. And that meant that your power in the world was diminished. So think of it in these very, very direct and analog terms. Your DNA and its movements represent thought patterns and secondarily emotional states. The ability to move your DNA in certain thought patterns represents degrees of freedom in the world. Inhibiting the movement of DNA, so now we're kind of doing the robot. Remember last week I did the robot? Sometimes we have to be silly too. Diminished freedom of movement of DNA equals diminished thought freedom. And I have this written in my notes, which is where I'm trying to here we go. DNA limitations on certain concepts that could set your mind free. Limiting the free movement of your DNA equates to limiting certain concepts that you cannot embody or comprehend and which have the capacity to set your mind free. And now you start to comprehend how devastating programs such as mind control and information warfare are. That these are not just exercises or gestures or something that is empty or decorative. People tend to think of words and information as something that is non-substantive and pretend that it's not going to hurt you, because when we think of that childhood rhyme, sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt me. And that is not true. In the case of information warfare and mind control, erroneous information, limited information, inability to think clearly or to move your own mind muscles in your natural mind patterns can very, very much hurt you. Very, very much hurt you, because I bring up, look, guys, I remembered to have my sculpture nearby. I didn't have to run to the back of the classroom to be able to get it. But you're navigating through this time field over here, and a lot of what is directing you through your movement through time is your thought structures, or are your thoughts. It's your mind and the movements of your mind that are part of what is propelling you through time and placing you on certain timelines or in certain positions here. So if something limits your clarity, your ability to think, controls your mind against your free will, or makes it so that you cannot know or think about things, then that definitely limits your trajectory through time. Okay, so when I wrote those notes and when I did my original recording 10 years ago, there was not a technological worldwide synthetic telepathy network in this fictional reality that we're talking about here today. And each mind was free as an individual to think as it wishes to think. So some of my notes from years ago are about my own personal ethics in being flying rainbow lasagna. And I would like to delve into that first, and then make a stark contrast with the profoundly evil a-holes in your world who have been manipulating and using DNA in a way that insults the fabric of space, time, and consciousness, and enslaves and diminishes you, and will eventually end in the total destruction if something were not done. So a better thing, because you just were like, I felt you pull back, like, Aurora, are we okay? Don't worry, we are okay. There are many, many timelines, and we are on the timeline that is not the timeline of total destruction. I'm making sure of that. So just be cool, everything is fine. But I talk with these scientists with my mind, with my energy sometimes. And when I say scientists, who I'm referring to in this imaginary pretend land are researchers, those who are investigating genetics, those who use laboratories and laboratory equipment to attempt to comprehend or view or observe what DNA is doing, and those who do genetic modifications of DNA, its structure and its behavior, either in a body or in cell cultures, like alive cells, or in a CRISPR like machinery, or any other way in which DNA is being viewed, used, or manipulated. And that includes like fertility experiments, breeding experiments, and that anytime DNA is used, I'm not just talking about humans. Like, let's say someone is into horse breeding, or perhaps dog breeding. What if someone was a scientist who was interested in breeding dogs who had the innate ability to sniff out cancer? I would be referring to those people as well in my, of course, purely fictional and theoretical reality. But when I connect with those mind states and with their worldviews, the worldviews of the scientists who are doing those things are dangerously flawed. They are not aware of how much they are insulting and harming DNA and how much they imperil its existence. If they were left to their own devices and to the inevitable denouement of them getting what they deserve, they would be in a reality that does not support life and cannot exist. And I'm not even just talking about like a dead rock floating in space with no life on it. I'm talking about a world where DNA in all species is destroyed, not only on this planet, but throughout the levels of reality where it is, which is all pervasive. And that literally it is not possible for consciousness to be on those timelines. So if I were to say to those scientists, as I somewhat simplistically wrote in my notes, like, well, I do me and you do you, all right? And if it's like, well, okay, if those guys are going to be manipulating DNA in a way that destroys the fabric of space-time, it means they can't be on my timeline because I'm on a keeping the fabric of space-time together timeline, a viable timeline, right? And so then they would shift, like imagine these are all viable timelines, they would shift from a viable timeline to one of these non-viable timelines that has an end on the membrane of death, because what they do is such an insult to the fabric of space-time that it literally cannot support consciousness anymore, and they don't exist. And they don't exist. And I'm holding up my hand, this stupid AI think that I'm holding up my hand, but I'm not holding up my hand. So sorry if this is distracting in the meeting, and I just can't deal with these buttons that have to be pushed. And every time buttons are pushed, then it's like, life force is drained. Okay, blah, blah. Back to focusing. So those scientists and genetic mutilators and genetic torturers, really, as I really more accurately characterize what they're doing and how it feels to DNA, which is an alive presence, which I have not emphasized enough in class here today, DNA as sentience, DNA as an alive presence, DNA with behavioral and personal boundaries of like how it wishes to be treated and how it does not wish to be treated, being treated very, very badly to the point that DNA decides to pack up all of its toys and take itself home and not be a container for consciousness throughout the galaxy anymore. Be like, oh no, you have hurt me so badly. I will not be here for you anymore. And then there's no consciousness. So to summarize, those very, very evil and misguided, beyond foolish, very malignant mind states that mutilate DNA in this way for their scientific experiments or whatever they're doing, breeding experiments, they belong on timelines that are basically inherent dead ends that cannot support life. So the topic of today is the sun, DNA, light, and interdimensional ethics. Ethics has to do with what is right, what is wrong, and boundaries. Because when you live in society, when you're not like no man is an island, you're not just yourself flitting in a void with nothing else around you. Their life would be simpler. Does that seem appealing? Life would be simpler. You have to deal with all these people and their stuff. Their whatever I want to say, their mishigas, their profound mental illnesses. It would be so much easier sometimes to just be on your own and not have to deal with the detritus of their minds. But you are in a world of interconnectivity. And the way that our world was originally created, you were meant to have beautiful co-inhabitants of reality that you would wish to be connected with. That you would say, I'm so happy that I am here in this diversity of life. I'm so happy that I'm not alone. These are wonderful members of the symphony of life, or bandmates making beautiful music together, and I'm so happy and excited to meet and interact with them every day. All right. But you guys know, and we always talk about this in lesson 18, that there has been really a consciousness invasion onto this planet, a genetic invasion into what is your present body form, and a dilution of the divine connection that has led to, I would say, a dilution of the goodness of humanity, or of the gene pool, or of the characteristics that are here. So a lot of what you have here is not good stuff. I want to say filler, but it's not just how people think of an NPC or like an empty void character that is just like an automaton or disconnected, but really something that is profoundly malevolent. So when I talk about the disease that is known as cancer in fictional realities, of course, I portray it as similar to a cell in the body that doesn't know that it's connected to and responsible to the rest of the cells in the body. That it basically disconnects from identifying with its environment, and it identifies only with itself, and it determines it only has to take care of itself. It is regressing into the mind state of a unicellular organism from a multicellular organism, and then acting out of those levels of profound self-centeredness and lack of care for its environment. It becomes a pathogen. That accurately describes the behavior of many embodiment people in fictional reality who do something similar, where they disassociate from not only the rest of humanity, but also plants, animals, the mineral kingdom, the planet, light itself, divine consciousness, all of the things that are the environment, the stuff around you, and be like, I always make my tough guy voice, hey, I'm looking out for number one. I only have to care about me. I'm not going to do anything that's good for you guys. I'm just going to do what's good for me. And that level of really pathogenic and insane disassociation and self-centeredness leads to destruction of the whole. Please allow me to hydrate for a moment. I am drinking some beautiful mate. So hold on a moment here. I'm mildly caffeinated. That's why, like, gird your loins. The responsibility towards your environment and towards your community is known as the social contract. This is a largely mammalian device. It has given rise to complexities of civilization that would not have been capable if people were only acting for their own. If you're like, no, I just feed myself, I do not care about anybody else, clearly, like, you cannot even have a family, much less a tribe, much less a small town or a city, much less a nation state. So in order to have large levels of civilization and to do things like build cities or build roads or build bridges or have real economies, you have to care about others. And this is also part of the mammalian paradigm. The reptilian paradigm says, hey, I'm only looking out for number one, or unicellular life, I'm looking out for number one, but they can only go so far in life for projects that don't require other people. Everyone will at a certain point meet an object that is too heavy for them to lift on their own. Like, you're walking along and there's a rock or boulder in your path, and you're like, I can't move this thing. And you're like, what do I do now? And if you're a reptile, you're like, that's it, end of the road, right? But if you're a mammal, you're like, can't do this on my own, but what if I ask some of my other species for help? And then you get groups that work together towards common goals. And this is literally human development. And part of the social contract also has to do with respecting other people's boundaries, meaning you don't take them as slaves. You allow them to live in freedom. You don't try to like siphon their blood off of them. That's called being a vampire and is generally frowned upon in polite society. And we'll return to that concept too, because it relates to synthetic telepathy in the purely fictional reality and the unspoken truths of our conversation here. But you also are considered in the social contract, like you're not supposed to just randomly kill other people. Killing people in self-defense is different, but you're not supposed to just randomly aggress against others or steal their body parts or something like that. Like, you know, whatever, like to try to chop off somebody's arm and then sew it onto your own body. Like all of that is considered very, very bad form. And the social contract exists in order to protect those who are vulnerable, those who are weak, those who can't fight and defend themselves. Like there's a lot of aspects of why this is needed to be able to foster something greater. As I'm talking to you about this and as I was preparing my notes this morning, I was thinking a lot about Bitcoin as a great analogy to DNA. And of course, humans always externalize their own internal state so that they can learn more about themselves. So Bitcoin and the blockchain is very much a mechanistic, digital, physical, technological expression or analog to what is inside of you that is biological, miraculous, supernatural, a bridge of light, not something that is merely mechanistic. And I'm going to really ride the scientific community hard in this fictional reality that I'm talking about, because they look at DNA as a purely mechanistic, non-sentient, stupid thing. And that is what brings them all onto timelines that are non-viable, treating it like an object, like an it, instead of like a person or a living, alive animal. And it destroys it. But this is where this relates. So see how this relates. So some people in the Bitcoin community think that what is necessary to build a robust system is endless attacks and anything that is attempts to hack or attempts to exploit or attempts to find vulnerabilities to destroy the system. And a lot of people in the Bitcoin community are kind of like here's the target, you know, like I'm not defending myself, like try your hardest. And then they think that it's important to grow stronger and to withstand their assailants and then figure out how they're getting attacked and then build themselves stronger. And I completely do not agree to this at all. I do not consent to this. It is actually a very large schism, is a good word, in the Bitcoin community right now, as there are the Bitcoin core developers, and then there are the Bitcoin knots people, and they have ideological conflicts about what's going on. And some people are like, well, you know, let the slings and arrows fly, and then the strongest shall survive. And I'm like, no, this is not what you're supposed to do at all. I do not consent to this. So, because that's also not what you're supposed to do with your DNA. So the analogy, now I have an analogy for my analogy, if your brain can keep this going. Be with me on the journey. In the Middle Ages, people did not have sewage systems. They did not have sewers. They did not have toilets that they flushed or anything like that. Nobody took care of the sewer. Nobody took care of filth and trash. And there was no policing about filth and trash. What people did was just dumped it out the window. And that is literally why there is a social custom for men to walk in the street and for women to walk in the inside guarded areas of the sidewalk. Because if someone was dumping something out the window, it would hit the men and not hit the women. Literally, that is where that chivalrous custom comes from. But people got really sick back then because they dumped their trash and their human waste everywhere, all right? In our world today, we consider it to be very, very bad form for you to simply dump poo-poo out the window onto someone else's head. We might even consider it to be illegal in some ways. And what we do is we have a sewer where the poo-poo goes. And that is supposed to be that way so that we don't get each other sick. And in your body also, like you have sequestered areas in your physical body so that you can stay alive. Your blood supply is separate from your poo-poo. If you have poo-poo in your blood supply, that is very bad and you will die. Very bad. So the Bitcoiners are in the Middle Ages. thinking that it's acceptable to just have people sling sewage everywhere and then be like, well, a strong immune system will simply repel or integrate the sewage. And I'm like, no, you got to sequester that sewage. You got to keep it in its sewage container and not let it affect or afflict the rest of society so that healthy systems can grow. Literally, if you have pathogen or waste or disease in your blood supply, your body can't grow. You've got waste instead of nutrients going where it's supposed to go. So what you have to do is make certain that to go back from sewage and your social contract and agreement not to dump sewage on each other to the analogy of Bitcoin. If you want Bitcoin to actually grow and to actually be a viable alternative ecosystem that is better than the extremely flawed financial ecosystem of the past 100 or 150 years or so on your planet, then you cannot dump endless amounts of sewage into its blood supply and think that it's going to be okay. That is not the same as building an immune system. So sewage in your blood supply does not build immunity. What builds immunity is being moderately exposed to small amounts of something that is a pathogen so that your body can mount a response, and also to anticipate exposure to pathogens so that you can prevent it. Real immune system is not to live in a filth-covered environment, but is to anticipate filth and clean it up so that you may act in clarity and cleanliness, okay? So I come from a totally different viewpoint about what DNA is supposed to be doing. It's not supposed to be withstanding endless onslaughts. So some of these scientists and mistaken Bitcoiners, core devs, would say, or those who support the core devs, would say, just bring it on. Just give us your worst and we'll try to survive it. If we can't survive, it's not a worthy system. And I'm like, no. Now, any system can have vulnerabilities and exploits. And the way that you have life and the way that you have the miraculous phenomenon of both consciousness and DNA as a consciousness container propelling things through time is not achieved through endless onslaughts, but instead is achieved through development while under states of protection. Like, I'm like, no, don't dump a lot of trash on the system. Let the system develop. I'm going to protect the system from trash. I'm like, really, no. There's enough trash or enough garbage or enough pathogen that is going to be encountered when you are trying to do things right, as opposed to doing things knowingly wrong or allowing the knowing malignant behavior to occur and do nothing about it because you think that that's what it is to make something stronger. I do not agree to that premise. And I actually have like abundant cosmic and galactic level experience to back up where I'm coming from on that. It's not just a arbitrary or whimsical pronouncement that I'm making. It's absolutely based in my higher levels of dimensional experience. Basically, if you want to grow a garden, you cannot have someone like throw salt or gasoline or whatever everywhere on the garden. Like, that is going to kill the garden. That is going to destroy things. Having a garden is a miracle. I want to say MF in miracle. It's not emphasis, miracle. And it doesn't just happen by accident. And if you want to have a garden, which is like a miracle of life, you have to actually protect it from bad stuff like salt or gasoline that would burn or corrode it. And then you also have to take care of it. So not only do you have to protect it by keeping out pathogens and corrosive materials, but that's not enough. That would be like being like, okay, like you have a baby and you just let it sit there and you keep out pathogens, but you don't do anything else. Like, no, like you're going to have to feed the baby and you're going to have to diaper the baby and you're going to have to like play with it and teach it stuff. Like, you got to do a lot more than just keep out the bad stuff. You got to shower it with goodness. All of you exist here as biological life forms and as consciousness in DNA containers because somebody, something large showered you with goodness. Because you were protected from badness, you were protected from pathogens, you were given the opportunity to grow and to develop, and you were showered with goodness. Like, not only food and water, but love and support and inspiration and encouragement. It takes a lot to be able to grow a garden. It does not happen accidentally. It happens very, very intentionally with a huge amount of effort that is done by the entire symphony of life. So basically, every other level of reality is filled with beautiful, benevolent organisms who are actually trying. They're actually trying to be good parents. They're actually trying to take care of the environment around them. They're actually trying to think about, learn about, and care for other organisms. And while they also care for themselves, they're actually trying to grow the garden. But in this world, you are not surrounded singularly only by that quality of life. You are also somewhat surrounded by and interactive with these very, very mistaken pathogens that seem to take it upon themselves and justify their existence as necessary pathogens to make the system stronger. They are not making the system stronger. It is a flawed proposal at the foundation of who they are. What's really going on is they have a bizarre and incomprehensible subconscious desire, which is highly inappropriate. That's why it's subconscious, to destroy the system. When you're alive and the system supports you, and you literally look around and everything you have comes from the system, which is divine. So you can think it's God, it's nature, it's the world of pure light, it's the miracle of life. When you look around, you're like, stupid miracle of life, supporting me. I hate you, miracle of life. Like, I'm going to do whatever I can to destroy you. Like, there is something very wrong there. There is something very, very wrong there. That's the wrong response. When you are given this beautiful gift, you're not supposed to be like, wow, what an amazing gift. Let me see if I can destroy it for you. That is not right. And I kind of made a crazy face when I said that. So I hope that that's not going to be the AI thumbnail for my video today. All right. But yeah, no, I was kind of like trying to personify that level of really psychopathology and wrongness. No, you're not supposed to think that way about life at all. And that is not secret darkness, and that is not shadow work, and that is not a justifiable existence. So I don't know why some organisms or people or the organizations that they build have that type of pathogenesis inside, but I just admit that they do. And sometimes I don't ask why. I just accept that. And that is a big way of how I've been like moving through this world, because there are a lot of things that, like, if you try to find out, your intellect wants to know the why and the origins of it, you will go crazy. You will go crazy. I don't want you to, but just like, it's very convoluted and you kind of get sucked in. So what I do in order to transcend the crazy is to just be like, oh, oops, I have to get that. Sorry, that was my hard drive falling down. It was important. In order not to go crazy with the apparent inconsistencies and logistical self-conflicts and illogics in there, I just don't even question why. I just accept that. And that is the real state of unconditional love. So in my flawed notes from many years ago, I talk about unconditional love as accepting other people and what they need for their journey. And that is truthful, and it is still truthful, but you must have boundaries, because other people can only explore their own individual journey insofar as social contract, it does not have an impact on you. Like if someone else wants to explore injectable drugs and what that will do to their body, fantastic. You can be like, okay, great, go throw your life away, but I am going to live my life differently. But what if they were injecting drugs into their veins that then somehow magically flew through the air and got inside of you? And you would be like, this is bull doo-doo. This is not acceptable, because I don't want to take those drugs and I do not consent and I do not put them inside of me, right? So there becomes an ethical problem because boundaries have been breached. So now I want to talk about who I am as Flying Rainbow Lasagna. You guys already know this for a long time. Interdimensional visitor. I'm a waveform or a light presence. That means that I'm a piece of information. And what I'm doing here is animating this body and dancing with the DNA of this body into new patterns. And I'm dancing in patterns that the original occupant of this body never danced in. Some of them are the original patterns or morphic field corrected things that she might have had in terms of like healing or health or other things before her death. But some things are totally new and innovative music that I'm playing with the musical strings of this DNA body that she never knew about. And that's totally acceptable. Because when I came into this body, I chose to take on the responsibilities of this life and of this body and to do what the people of this time and place do, which is basically you have a body, which is like your instrument. Think of it as guitar or piano with strings that go through it. And through your life, you play the instrument of your body. And when you play the instrument of your body in this totally fictional, pretend reality, you emit music. And that music is not just something that you experience, it is also experienced by the other organisms around you in this fictional reality, fictional reality. So you are affecting other people, and other people are affecting you by their natural, unself-conscious, simple existence. The phenomenon is called sympathetic vibration, and it is literally an aspect of compassion, which is when your heart resonates with the experiences of another person. In harmonics and frequency work, like observational frequency work, when you're looking at the physical world, if you have a series of guitar strings, like my hand is the guitar, if you pluck one of the strings over here, like bing, I'm going to make noise with it, it vibrates and it pushes the air, and it pushes the air against the other strings. And it can make this string over here make a noise, even though you didn't touch it. You're like, I didn't even touch that guy. I just touched this guy over here, but this guy made a noise. That's you in society. I'm just touching my own strings over here, but I'm emanating outward. It affects the other people around me. That's not just people, that's also dogs, cats, birds, trees, animals, butterflies, redwood trees, blue whales, tiny microbes. Everyone gets affected by your song. So in my very valid notes from years ago, I talk about how like you have to consider what you're sending out to the rest of the world and balance that with your own innate needs. And that's true. And to respect other people's boundaries. What I have done is never to impose my flying rainbow lasagna dance on others. I have always been here dancing in freedom. That's to say, this is my body. I choose to animate it. I choose to take responsibility for who I am and what I'm doing in the world. And I do my dance like this. And I've been here for since 2001. This is 24 years already. And I'm like, I do my flying rainbow lasagna dance like this. And I'm like, you know something? If you guys think this is cool, you can learn to do it too. I'm not going to force you to do it. I'm going to make it an option, an opportunity for you. And if you want to, like, you can come, you can be a part of my class, which is what you guys are doing here. And that means that first you're learning through your intellect and receiving the thought forms that start to make your DNA move in new patterns. And also, like, you're listening to my energy and you're attenuating to my energy. That energy is flowing to you. And if you're receptive to it, it flows through you, right? And then at a certain point, and I write about this in my Flying Rainbow Lasagna manifesto. So like right now, you're at the level of receiving music, being a listener. But at a certain point, you have internalized the music so profoundly that you're like, you know something? I want to start playing music myself. And then you start to Flying Rainbow Lasagna yourself. And that is like the conscious use of your DNA and the strings that are within your body to do new and innovative movements through time and combinations that optimize who you are. My combinations that optimized my DNA are not the same dance movements that will optimize your DNA. It must be customized because each one of us has a unique DNA shape and unique trajectory through time. So the rectification of what you need to do, like the math, the corrective math that you need to do to fix your life is going to be unique to you. I've always told you about like how I had to learn to calibrate properly from that miscalibrated machine that was in the original frame shop that I learned to work it. 3/16 on one side and then 1/16 on the other side. That is not standard to every frame shop. That only was for that particular job. All right. So the rectifications and the calibrations that you need to heal and fix your own life are unique to you. So I came into this body with the body having its own injuries and physical, mechanical problems, and then its own, levels of like distortions in time. And then there's emotional baggage and traumas from the person who came, was here for many, many years and then who died. And then the things that I experienced, it's a unique recipe. And so my dance, when I do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna corrective DNA dance, I'm changing the spellings of the DNA that's inside of me so that it more accurately portrays the correct image of what DNA is supposed to portray in the world. And there is a correct image. This isn't just whimsy. There is a right and a wrong. So Flying Rainbow Lasagna allows you, key point here, to rearrange your DNA, but not in some monstrosity in the way that the fictional scientist of a fictional place of a very, very dark mentality looked at DNA. They looked at DNA as a mechanistic, dead thing to exploit, and that they could take the sequences of the different proteins, which they're signified by 4 different letters, A, C, G, and T. All right, that's all you need to know. It's like having 4 notes in a chord, and that they look at those 4 notes as notes that qualities that can be arranged in any arbitrary pattern, and that don't have to sound good, and that can be used to achieve any arbitrary goal with 0 consequences. And none of that is truthful. What is truthful is that those 4 notes and the ability to arrange them or rearrange them into the complex patterns involving trillions of cells and their dynamic nature over time is miraculous, very highly considered, and very non-arbitrary. And that in order to have the thing that is called life, you have to conform to certain patterns. If you mix up those 4 notes into random crapola, it does not sound like music. So here's the distinction. I am an actual musician. I'm a musician on many levels. A musician here in the physical world, where I have actual albums and that you can listen to with physical ears. But I am also a musician of DNA, where I can hear DNA, but it's not really hearing it. There's not a direct analog there. It's better to say I can sense it, or I can perceive what it's doing and what its resonance and frequencies and patterns are like. And I add to its beauty and its correct harmonic structure. As a musician, like, you can't call yourself a musician if you play bad music. You have to be like, that's an anti-musician, or I don't know what you'd call yourself, like a loudness engineer or something like that. But no, I actually make things that sound good, and I am very insulted by the sound of stuff that doesn't sound good. That's erroneous DNA structures. So, like, let's talk about this. Like, when there's a conception, like in human birth or in mammalian birth, the combinations of genes that happen don't always add to life. Sometimes there is a mistake, a mutation, a transcriptional error, or an error in the expression of what is there. Like, it says this, but it gets written as something else. And then that does not support life. And that's really important to recognize. Of course, like right now, due to these things, there have been a lot of miscarriages and infertility and things like that. So this is not a regular time in any species, and definitely not in human world. And also, please know that this stuff over here also really, really affects fertility and the ability to conceive. So there's not the same levels of fertility in your whole ecosystem as there usually is and should be. But ordinarily, like in human or mammalian fertility, that there will be like a certain number of successful pregnancies where the DNA is expressed accurately. And then it means that life can be held by that container. When you don't have the correct arrangement or behavior of DNA, life cannot be held in that container. If you assault the DNA of a whole entire species, it means life cannot be held in the container of the whole entire species. And if you insult the container of the whole entire planet or all DNA everywhere, no life can be held in any container, anywhere. Bye-bye life. Very, very bad. And as I'm saying this, like, I'm saying the worst information in the most, silly way I possibly can say it, because I use humor in order to deliver bad news. But that is the peril that humanity is facing from these types of things in a fictional reality. I'm going to hydrate. Thank you very much. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. So, because of the interconnectedness of these fictional strands of fictional DNA, you can't just say, well, scientists, you do you, I do me. Or genetic modifiers, genetic self-modifiers, you do you, I do me. Because they are plucking their own guitar string over here, but it is reverberating fictionally to touch some of the other fictional strings, fictional reality. that others may inhabit. And when you get to that, then you are looking at a breaking of the social contract and different ethical considerations coming up. So what I wrote many years ago was before that barrier had been dissolved. And now that that barrier has been dissolved, the gloves are off, because it's like this. I live in an apartment building, so I have walls that are between me and my neighbors. I have my own air conditioning and heating system. But what if you were to remove all of those walls between myself and my neighbors? All of a sudden, I'd hear them when they're snoring. They would hear my Netflix when I'm staying up far too late watching, whatever, The Good Place or something like that. And then also, I like it to be 71 degrees and they like it to be 78 degrees, and we'd have fights over that. And also, someone's cooking onions and I have to smell their onions. Like, this is not okay. This is literally what is going on in the world as a result of these things that were invented by fictional scientists, totally don't respect not only individual boundaries, but have no idea of what DNA actually does. So now let me go. So they look at DNA as a mechanistic thing. And the fictional scientists also look at DNA as something that is merely a creator of protein structures. The fictional scientists say, like, hey, these protein structures, like if you arrange these 4 notes of these 4, different types of DNA that you could have, then you end up with fictional brown eyes, right? But if you arrange them differently, then you end up with fictional blue eyes. And that is what these fictional DNA structures do. But that is not what DNA structures do. Not at all. They are much, much more than a signifier for what your physical body is shaped like. Although there is that. Your DNA is a description of what you're going to experience in time. And scientists in the fictional world are totally blind to what is going on in time. Even when we talk about things like Project Looking Glass, Fictional Looking Glass, which we talked about last week. Those guys, they can't see SHIT. They're like, oh, I can't see anything, because their fictional looking glass stopped working at a certain point. You can't use that in order to be able to see what is happening in the future. So you use your inner eye. Where's my giant crystal? Like, imagine that this is your pineal gland, a beautiful crystalline structure, and it's deep inside of your brain. And you use that in order to sense what is going to happen in the future, what is going to happen in the future. And the answer of what is going to happen in the future is always changing. Like, I sense what's going to happen in the future, and I get a roadmap for right now. But then as soon as you go through and start to go through the labyrinth of time, the roadmap changes. So then you're like, oh, it was like this, but now when I look again, now it's like this. I better change what I'm doing. And then 5 minutes later, you look again and you're like, it changed again. Now I have to change and update what I'm doing. That is normal. That is totally normal. Now let's talk about fictional dark magicians, because fictional dark magicians don't have this thing. They don't have an active pineal gland. They don't have that active divine connection that tells them what is going to be happening in the future. What they have done is developed mechanistic recipes, like an eye of newt plus a skin of toad plus the skin of a newborn and some menstrual blood. Throw it together in a cauldron and do these things at this time of day and say these words, and then a magical thing will happen. Like, it's a recipe. Like, I am being very silly in my fictional account here, but dark magic is a recipe that is created by very mutilated consciousnesses who can't really see the future. And what happened was they figured out how to make something successful one time. And then they said, we figured out the secret. Now just continue to repeat that approach, and it will always work. And this is also kind of a scientific, objective, materialist viewpoint. Dark magic, alchemy, and how that was the basis of what we know as objective materialistic science. All right. So, of course, the alchemists were more about a spiritual description of transformation of consciousness. But their quest for knowledge definitely is underpinning of Newton and classical physics and the objective materialist viewpoint. Mechanistic is the key point here, and recipe-based. the scientists and geneticists are the modern fictional outgrowth of those dark magicians of the past that tried to determine what are the recipes that create reality. Because they were not looking at how to play with the band. They were not looking at how to be a good citizen of the galaxy, how to respect the social contract of living with other life forms. They were like, hey, how can I get stuff for me? I'm going to make a recipe about how to get stuff for me. And then once I figure that out, then I'm going to teach it to my dark students. My dark students will go forward into the future and create dark schools that will continue on with these recipes, okay? So these fictional dark magicians have been doing this for a long time, and they have certain effective recipes that they were able to use in terms of changing reality. And this is before the use of technology to directly affect reality. But that was when they used to use something like sacrifice of a victim or of sexual energy through violation, and to apply that stolen or misappropriated life force energy to non-ideal reality structures. So they were connecting to time and creating bad reality structures, but not knowingly connecting to DNA, because they still didn't know that DNA existed. They didn't really know it yet, of course, until the 1940s, when there was the modern exploration and description of DNA. And then, of course, so what I teach you guys about is how DNA is not deterministic. You are not fated. So let's talk about determinism. Determinism is a human philosophy that states that basically your whole entire life is written for you as a script. Like you are an actor or an actress on the stage, cue Shakespeare, right? Like all the world's stage, and you're an actor or an actress, and you get no choice. You're going to be born with brown eyes, and you're going to walk on a treadmill, and you're going to paint these paintings that somebody else made it all happen. Oh, and also we're having internet problems. So if my internet goes out, please stay on board and I will come back. Okay, so yeah, they said that the cable companies having a problem with their internet today. Okay, but you are not in a deterministic reality. I do not believe in determinism at all. I believe in free will. And so the deterministic worldview really amputates the experience of free will. It is not only a flawed philosophy, but it also, when you believe in it, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if you believe, well, I'm not very powerful at all, you actually are powerful, but with your ability to write reality, you write the reality, I am not powerful at all, and then that becomes your reality. So many people use the philosophy of determinism and fate in order to avoid responsibility. They're like, I'm not responsible, it was written into my DNA, don't blame me, I'm just following my DNA. And that is bull doo-doo. That is not truthful. Because what is actually truthful is, so that was deterministic DNA perception in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, kind of that whole era of humanity first starting to comprehend what DNA is and look at its impact on people's life and behavior and human health. But then much later, there are people like Bruce Lipton, who came along, not a total endorsement of the man or of science or of their PCR testing, and I'll talk all about that too. Because when we talk about DNA, now we have to be super skeptical about the way that these tests are created and run. So that's another rant to prepare yourself for today. And I have to be careful about my vocabulary words when I do that rant. But this guy looked into something, and it's called epigenetics. And that is basically the sense that genes have behavior. Genetic expression is influenced by environment and by you. What you believe, what you feel, what you think, and things that are directly within your control in terms of your emotional landscape. Identical twins do not develop identical diseases. So this blows genetic fatalism, fate, and determinism out the window, because same exact egg gets made into identical twins, but one of them develops cancer, which is a genetic disease, and one does not. And why does that happen? So Bruce Lipton talks about this as epigenetics. EPI is this prefix that means a phenomenon within a phenomenon. Like an epiphyte is a plant that grows on another plant, like an orchid. So this is a code that rules the code. And it means that you start off with your DNA as a potential for expression. Like I'm an artist, and when I get a palette of paints, it comes as a potential for making a painting. But then I am the artist, and I choose, like, I'm going to take a little bit of magenta and put it over here, and a little bit of orange over here, and then a little bit of purple over here. I'm the artist painting with the palette. Your DNA is the palette, the raw materials that you start with, and that you are the artist creating your masterpiece. You choose what you exacerbate and what you diminish. And that's the essence of Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So when we get back to me and my ethical journey here, I figured out a higher dimensional solution to be able to change and transform DNA, not only so I can come and inhabit this body, like do things that are medically, scientifically impossible or extremely, extremely unlikely to happen, but also to find ways to be able to supersede the negative genetic implants that were meant to separate a consciousness from divinity while you're here. So that means I found ways to restructure the DNA in my human form here so that that way I could talk to the stars again, and I could talk to divinity, and I could get out to the grocery store to get all sorts of new thoughts and ideas. Because as I said in my updated notes over here, reread this again. DNA limitations on certain concepts that can set your mind free. So there have been limitations in not only the order of the notes in your musical score of your DNA, fictional, 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 but also in your ability to access them and bend and fold them in the way that you want to. And this meant you literally couldn't think certain things. And some of them were about like chronological aging. A lot of the stuff that was implanted into humanity was about the inevitability of and necessity of decrepitude and death. And a big part of what I am here to rectify and to exemplify in my own body over here is no decrepitude and no death. All right. So when you come here and I teach you all about the map of time and moving towards the membrane of death, moving away from it, how you're navigating all of that, that's giving you the intellectual skills to be able to start to move your DNA in those structures. And then if you join my invitation only dance class on Tuesday mornings, then I show you the actual dance of how you do it. But you recognize like how I'm moving my elbow is a macroscopic representation of what I'm doing on a tiny microscopic level with my DNA. So it's not just a dance looking at what I'm doing with my 4 limbs. It's a dance of my DNA. So when you look at a ballerina or someone else who's doing adaptive dance in your world, you're like, oh, like they're moving their elbow. But when you look at me, what I'm really asking is for the perceiver to participate or to view on a genetic level and to understand or comprehend that I'm dancing through time and to comprehend that something larger is happening in DNA than just the description of the shape of protein structures. So now we have to contrast with objective materialist scientists in the fictional world. Fictional. So when I was holding up this piece of paper at other times in the semester and other places, I had something else written down here. And I cut that off today because you know what? I did some research and found out that there's just a lot of things that are not correct in how the fictional scientists are looking at and perceiving DNA. They're not even really perceiving what DNA is or what it's doing. So I had to kind of throw some things out the window because the very mechanical tests or machinery that they use to try to perceive DNA is inherently flawed. And this is, gird yourself, incoming rant. You can see this type of test that I have written down over here. I am very certain that I cannot say those words. In the fictional reality, I'm certain that it would ring many alarm bells. And so I'm not going to say those words. But that particular test is like very bogus. It is not truthful at all. And that particular test was used to explain the events that happened when this was activated and when these were going to be justified in the world. The test portrayed inaccurately. Fictional test portrayed some fictional and imagined presence of genetic materials that were not actually present. Imagination, hallucination, and the test is 100% an inflammatory, imaginary test that gives imagined results. And the imagined results were used for mind control, and they were used for narrative management, and they were used to justify the ushering in of this more direct and forceful way of inserting this into the fictional people that lived in that world. So, because this has to do with cancer and tiny stuff that can cause cancer that might be in, but the way of determining whether RNA or DNA fragments are present is inherently flawed. It's inherently flawed. So it's basically like saying this, like, imagine someone is a chef cooking food, but they do not actually have taste buds. They cannot actually taste or sense at all the tastiness of the food that they are making. And they invent a completely flawed and unimaginably erroneous, like Rube Goldberg contraption. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like a hunk of junk machine that a jalopy that doesn't work very, very well. And then at the convoluted end of the machine, it spits out a little, reading a little ticker tape that says like tasty or non-tasty. And it has absolutely nothing at all to do with the actual nutrients that are in food or the sensory experience of actually eating food. And they have no way to be able to compare the results of either tasty or non-tasty against anything. And so they have created these fake, like we got a result of 300 tasty results. This food was 300 times tasty and 25 times non-tasty. So they have no idea whether the food is tasty or not. They have no taste buds. They have no one who has taste buds reporting back to them, and they're living in a self-created illusion. That is the truth of the fictional scientists and fictional geneticists, that fictional world that the very, very unfortunate people were living within. And then they created public health policies based upon those fictional results to devastating effects. So you can see why it would be very, very incendiary to talk about the invalidity of the public health policies of that fictional world, or to call them into question, or to analyze them with any level of rational skepticism. If you speak to these fictional scientists who very, very greatly are invested both in their emotion and their belief system, and also in their money with that particular form of perception of what whether DNA, RNA is present and what it's doing and what its quotient is, they will be very threatened. It threatens not only their livelihood, it threatens their worldview. And so I only recently swam around in that toilet by talking to some of those fictional scientists. I fictionally talked to the fictional scientists, and it came to the conclusion, like, I think a lot of them know that they're fraudulent. I think some of them know. Some of them might be true believers, and they're like, oh yeah, we ran the result through the tastiness machine and we got 30% tastiness quotient. Like, some of them really believe that. Sorry, I made a crazy face there. But I think some of them are sophisticated enough not to believe it. And they're like, oh, we got funding for the tastiness sensory machine, and we're going to run all of these human tissue samples through the tastiness machine, and we're going to determine its tastiness quotient. We're going to get whatever, 30% or 89% tastiness, and then we're going to give those results to the fictional government oversight committee, who's going to create fictional public health policies of what needs to fictionally go inside of people as a result, and how effective those fictional inside of people things are going to be. I know it might be torturous to hear me talk this way. I hope it's entertaining and hilarious. But those people, whether they are overtly malignant and they know that their tests are fantasy-based, hallucinatory, and invalid, or whether they are true believers who genuinely believe in the validity of their tests, are dangerous idiots. And you cannot simply allow them to do what they want to do. If you do, you put yourself on a timeline of non-viability. If you're like, I do me, you do you, go do your crazy genetic experiments, they will destroy the world. And you will be like, but I was doing me and they were doing them. And the truth is, once you start to mess around with DNA because of certain unspoken qualities of what it is and what it does, your lives become intertwined. And the bad things that silly a-holes do end up affecting you, which is why every time in the semester we come to this lesson, I must speak eloquently against my own work. It is not enough to just say no thank you. It is not enough to just allow someone to follow their folly when their folly is having a direct impact upon you, your biology, consciousness, and your flight through time. So according to the social contract, you must act in order to protect your own boundaries, your own freedom, and to prevent someone else from abusing or exploiting you. If you do not learn that lesson, then you cannot be on a viable timeline. When I teach you about the very, very first timelines over here at the edge, a baby is born and 1 hour later it dies. How very sad. What did the baby die of? Is it because it thought the wrong thought? No. It's a baby. It's not even able to think yet. Why did the baby die? Because it didn't know on an immune system level that it needed to mount a response. It came into the world. This is the baby. I'm pretending I'm a baby. I just got born. I just arrived from heaven. Everyone in heaven is so nice and so wonderful. I'm sure this place is as nice and wonderful as heaven. I'm just going to sit here. I don't have to protect or defend myself or effort in any way. Everything that I need will come to me, and I'm in a complete state of safety and health. And then one hour later, be like, you're dead because you were wrong, because you are in a dangerous environment where there are a lot of things that are trying to kill you, and you need to start trying to protect yourself immediately. You need to mount an immune system defense against microbial invaders to your body. As soon as you get here into the world, you got to fight. You got to fight for your existence. And I know that many of you wanted to fill in that sentence with fight for your right to party and then go into the Beastie Boys amazing oeuvre. But please don't. Let's stay serious and let's stay focused. You must fight in this world where there are pathogens. Of course, in the world of ancient concurrent Atlantis, when you arrive into the world, you are completely safe, completely protected. You are given all of the opportunity that you need to be able to learn about pathogens from a distance. Like, oh, they're all over there on Mars or on Tiamat or somewhere else. Far away, not here. So I have time to learn about them and get strong before I have to deal with them. But here in this world, you must act against them. So with fictional, extremely bizarrely wired or worldview created scientists who are treating DNA in a way that is not only mechanistic, but is the definition of malignant. They're acting like malignant cancers. If you don't know that you need to mount a planetary-wide immune response to them, you're going to die. You're going to be on the short timeline of the planet where the planet didn't learn, I should have fought against them. Yeah, should have fought against them. Pardon me while I hydrate. It's not enough to simply say that you will live your own life and allow them to live their own life because your lives are intertwined, you share the same planet. And they are such a malignancy that they cannot be in existence in your world. And they are a malignancy that has unfortunately spread throughout the galaxy And what you need to do is create boundaries here, but that creation of boundaries here also emanates to other times, places, or fractals of reality, because what you're going to find out is that a lot of what's going on here ends up being the basis or the template for what is then going to be the jumping off point of the next level of reality. So if you do not surgically excise those malignancies from this time and place, then they will proliferate outward into the next storyline, into the next, again, level of reality. So it's essential to this now. So I have a lot of things to say. I'm sure you have many. I have actually the comments covered right now because sometimes I just need to be on track. But one of the other things that I wanted to say, oh my goodness. So the things that the synthetic telepathy in the fictional world does that are against cosmic law, it's not only the artificial intertwining of DNA, it is also the siphoning of unconditional love. Because when I talk about this in my notes, I'm like, well, yeah, no, you just have to maintain your love tone and then everything will be fine. I'm like, no, because in this world, there are these things. Sorry, busy picking up my piece of paper here. That have been placed into the biological world, fictionally, that reduce the love tone. They not only degrade the tone, like your cells of your body can be in a beautiful, loving, la, 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 like everything is so great feeling. And then the tiny wires, when they are activated and when they start to do their thing, prevent that beautiful, loving tone from being created, not only through the proliferation of the artificial wiring system that is creating antithesis force fields inside of the body, but also through other organisms, like other people, fictional, that are draining and drawing energy off of you. So let's say, because I talk about chakras and getting your energy up to here. It's like getting, let's say, up to 55 miles per hour, highway speeds. So this is in United States. The highway speed is usually 55 miles per hour. And if you're on the highway, you better be moving that fast. People would be on your butt otherwise. Be like, honk, honk, like move faster. Okay. If you are in unconditional love, you're like moving at highway speeds. But what if someone else is draining you and making you get down to 35 or 25 miles an hour? And then no matter how much you press on the gas, they're stealing the energy and they're getting faster and you're burning up all your gas. That is literally what these things are doing through the fictional, artificial connectivity bridges that have been created through technology in the fictional world that was created by fictional, very, very a-hole objective materialist scientists who do not respect what is going on with DNA or who do know what is going on with DNA and who are utter malignancies doing the most harm that they possibly can. And that is not a valid stress test of the system. That is how you effing kill the system. But there's also a lack of cosmic law right now in the non-upholding of the doctrine of stratification. So in cosmic law, you have freedom. Cosmic law is based upon freedom. And think about it just as particles. Particles may circulate to where they wish to go. And then there is the doctrine of stratification. I'm sorry that I don't have better words to be able to describe this, but that basically means that energy seeks its equal. How did I write about this in my notes? I'm trying to say energy seeks its own level. Yeah, sorry, I know I made crazy faces when I'm trying. So if you are at the level of unconditional love and higher, and you are in a harmonically correct formation, you would achieve certain levels of embodiment in the cosmic structure. And if you are not at those levels, you cannot achieve those embodiments. I know that was like word salad. So let's say it in a better way. On my screen, we have the lower margin over here, certain neighborhood that consciousness can live within. Then there is another neighborhood on top of there and other layers and neighborhoods on top of there. And like up here, this is the best neighborhood. It's like whatever, Beverly Hills, the best neighborhood for the fanciest people. In a well-formed cosmic fabric, consciousnesses or particles are free to circulate. So that is the freedom aspect. And energy seeks its own level. So VIPs live with VIPs. And down here, horrific a-hole monsters live with other grotesquely malformed, mutilated monsters. But these two levels of reality do not interact. Just like whatever here in Los Angeles, this is I don't live in LA, but I'm familiar with the city. In the city, you have Beverly Hills, which is the VIP club up here, and then you have like the homeless, shambling drug addicts down here who are like, whatever, panhandling in order to be able to afford, like some food from the gas station or something like that. Two wildly different levels of reality that, in an ordinary sense, would never meet and interact at all, right? Like the people in Beverly Hills are going to fancy parties. Their pinkies are up. They're drinking champagne. And they would never hang out with or talk with the bums that are on the street that are, panhandling and dealing drugs and stuff like that. Two totally separate levels of reality. In your spiritual development and in a well-formed cosmic infrastructure, you would experience similar levels of stratification. If you are a genuinely good person and you are a person of integrity, trying to be ethical, trying to help other people, trying to observe the social contract while still balancing the honoring of your personal individual desires. If you are attempting to grow, accrete more light, become more wise, do the right things, as rightness is defined by your personal ethics and the larger cultural context that you find yourself within, then you belong in the VIP club. That's everyone who's in this class, all right? But then there's the other people that are at the lower margins. And those are consciousnesses or people or organisms or organizations that are involved in profound levels of self-destruction and random destruction of other people. They don't observe the social contract. They have no problem with destroying the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. They don't take responsibility for their actions. They don't care about the impact of what they're doing on either other people, the planet, or the fabric of space-time. They act in exactly the same way with the same value system as malignancies in the body or pathogens in the body. They act as if they are individuals only caring about their own sustenance, their own survival at the expense of the environment around them. And the idea of stratification doctrine and freedom doctrine is that when this is active in a pristine environment, energy does organize itself very effectively. And there is social mobility of these horrific, like barbarian, grotesque monsters, like the Mad Max, like blah, horrible, fight it out spirit that's happening down there. If those consciousnesses evolve, try to grow, try to do the right thing, then they would have the upward mobility to be able to then enter into one of the intermediate layers where people start to learn how to interact with others respectfully, be more than just in survival mode, be more than just looking out for their own personal individualistic desires, and begin to be offered more responsibility in terms of the impact they may have on the world. The bottom of the barrel over here, the lowest level of the stratification, has very little impact on the structure of reality. They are the worst students, they are the sweat hogs, and they do not get to set the curriculum. They do not get to write the script of reality or determine anything about genetic structure. Like, they are very, very disempowered. And as consciousness is able to be at higher levels of this stratification, there is more personal responsibility that is taken, and there are greater levels of personal empowerment that happen as a result. The people that are in the VIP club up here, these aren't like the Beverly Hills fat asses, the fancy folk, because in our world, like, not the fancy folk are not always the most ethical or the best. Sometimes they got those houses by doing things that might not be so good. But in the world of pure interdimensional ethics, in a pristine world, people would occupy the VIP lounge, who are the best people, the best people. Just think about whoever is a spiritual superstar, or people that you admire, or people that you think are like the shining example of goodness. People who have saved lives and cared about other people and helped other people, done the best for other people, and who are joyful and respectful and good to be around, and who genuinely care. People who care about the garden, who don't want the garden to have gasoline or salt or other corrosive things spilled all over, and who are actively willing to get the watering can and water the plants every day and fertilize the plants and take care of them and dig them up and move them around and do everything. Like, so the good people, and they get to actually make the garden. This world that you're in fictionally is an inverted world where the worst losers have been in charge of the garden, and they are spewing corrosive things all over and making it almost impossible for healthy plants to grow here. And so please recognize that in terms of reality events, what you're looking at in the garden is only a tiny amount of the potential for abundance. Like maybe your garden grew 3 tomatoes. You're like, I got 3 tomatoes. It's amazing. I'm like, girl, I don't want to make you feel bad, but you should have gotten like 25 tomatoes. But you know what you didn't have? You didn't have the proper soil, and it didn't have healthy worms in it, and you didn't have calcium supplements, and you didn't have fertilizers, and so you only got 3 tomatoes, which might be like 3 magical tomatoes is better than nothing. But when you look around at your reality, fictional reality, you might be like, wow, like I had 1 magical synchronicity, right? Or 1, whatever, seeming miracle, seeming health miracle. You were healed in your body, as like that counts as a productive tomato in the garden of reality. But should have had 26. You should have had 26 miracles. And you didn't have that because the fictional world is populated by these empowered underclass, spiritual underclass. They've been set policy, and they've been farting up the joint and making things go very, very badly. Apologies for my loose language there. But no, they have been making the worst music, and also making it very, very difficult for you to play your good music because of the interconnectivity. Like, again, if you took away the walls in my apartment building, my neighbors would hear me and I would hear them. I'm guessing that they would not improve my music as I'm trying to play, hearing, my neighbors and everybody else's stuff going on. I'm like, I don't think that that's going to help me to concentrate on my music. I think my music will be worse if I feel that. I don't think that these are symphony musicians around me, to tell you the truth. I don't think that that's who's in my apartment. I think that these are people that would to distract me from trying to play perfect symphony music. So in the world right now, you have a lot of empowerment structures in terms of fictional medical research, scientific viewpoint, funding, healthcare, public health, leadership, organization, policymaking, that are the lowest of the low. They should not be influencing reality. Okay, so wait, we'll do a little moment's pause over here. And let me come over here, because again, I had the questions all covered up. Okay, good. So now I haven't been missing anything. So now I'll just continue onward. So let's do a little pagination page break. And what I want to talk with you now is about genetic behavior and what's really going on. So first I'll say what's not going on, or how the fictional world and fictional scientists look at DNA very, very erroneously. So DNA has behavior. Think of it as like a butterfly. When I look out at the beautiful garden over here, there are butterflies that fly around. They go from flower to flower. And the scientific, objective, materialistic viewpoint of the bottom here says, I'm going to learn about butterflies. You know what I'm not going to do? I'm now a fat ass scientist. I'm speaking of a scientist. I'm not going to send out my tendril of attention and touch on an alive butterfly and learn about it through the cultivation of my higher faculties and booking time on the telescope up here. No, what I'm going to do is kill it. I'm going to kill that butterfly. I'm going to stick it in a jar. I'm going to put some poison in it. I'm going to kill it. Then I'm going to cut it apart. And I'm going to look at it while it's dead and cut it into its individual pieces. And I'm going to look at all the individual pieces. Then I'm going to declare myself a butterfly expert. Of course, I have no idea about why the butterfly is motivated to fly around, why it goes to some flowers but not to other flowers, how many times it goes to that particular flower, why it flies around in the patterns that it does around the garden. In fact, I don't care. I don't care. I'm a fat ass scientist and I don't care about any of those things. I just like to kill things and cut them apart. And that is called being a pathogen. And that is not the same as scientific research. So the butterfly is DNA. Okay? Your DNA, it's very apt analogy too, because the butterfly is the higher dimensional form of the two-dimensional caterpillar that just goes along leaves, right? The butterfly goes from plant to plant, and it flies in these complex patterns. Your DNA is a time alive animal. And it is actually connected to not only your own ancestors and the people that came before you, but it's connected to not only your offspring, if you have physical children, it's connected to everyone else who is alive. Fictionally, that only happens in fictional contexts. But fictionally, that's what happens. And in order to really study and know about DNA, you have to be able to observe it as it is alive. But the way that the fictional scientists observe it is by taking DNA out of an alive cell. And then some of what they do is chopping it up into pieces. Like if you could imagine taking a sweater that is made of yarn that is woven together to make a beautiful picture. Maybe it's one of the Christmas sweaters that looks like Snoopy on the front. I always use this as my example in class. So it's like a red sweater that's got Snoopy's doghouse, and then Snoopy's sitting on top of the doghouse and a Christmas tree, right? So what the scientific approach is to first pull all of the yarns apart out of the sweater. We're going to unknit the whole entire sweater. Then we're going to put the whole entire sweater into a blender. And then after we chop it all up, we're going to separate out all of the red sweater fibers from all of the green sweater fibers, from the white sweater fibers, from the black sweater fibers, from the doghouse colored sweater fibers. And then we're going to look at the amounts that are in there and kind of make an assessment on that level. We're not looking at the entire picture of what the sweater brings when it is knit together. So and that is one form of genetic test. That is not the same as this form of genetic test. So that other form of genetic test that kind of looks at how much of something is in there is not the same as looking at other things. This is a completely hallucinatory way of looking at things. I just can't even get in. Oh, this is, I'm so inflamed. I can't even talk about this stuff. Okay. Imagine if you only had like a tiny random fragment of a sweater, and you're going to try to somehow reconstruct the image of what is on the front when it's all knitted together. And so you're going to take that little tiny fragment and you're going to repeat it over and over and over and over and over again in order to try to get a sense of what the overarching picture is. That is a lot more of what this type of test is like. Fictionally, it is a hallucinatory test that does not always give a true vision of what is actually present, because maybe it doesn't show a picture of Snoopy on the sweater. Maybe it's a Christmas elephant sweater, and it is a way to presume the existence of things that aren't actually there by filling in the blanks in a way that is convenient for the perceiver. And I will admit, like, I did not even delve enough into the actual scientific mechanics of this fictional type of test in order to recognize how flawed it is. I became very enraged, and I did not continue further because it hurts my brain when I'm like, this is so wrong. It is so wrong on a profound level, and then it has been used in this fraudulent way to fictionally justify public health policy in a fictional world where they just subconsciously wanted to do stuff. So it's really just an elaborate self-deception and system of justification so that control structures can do what they want to do. That was it. It was just completely about justifying the placement of this type of harmful pollution underneath people's skin in the fictional realm. It had nothing at all to do with whether or not Snoopy was on the sweater. And there are some people who are still very, very wedded to the narrative of the veracity of those tests, the statistics that came from those tests, who was found to be wearing a Snoopy sweater, according to those tests, and whether they themselves are wearing a Snoopy sweater to this day. Some people still go and get a very, very long, harmful thing stuck into their olfactory plate near their skull so that they can tell whether they're wearing a Snoopy sweater or not. And they are not really getting told whether they're wearing a Snoopy sweater. That is a ruse. But what they are doing is implanting fictional up their nose with these wonderful long Q-tips. And sometimes cheek scrapings or other things. So yeah, no, if well, believe me, okay, so some of you might be wondering, Aurora, what if you need to take a Snoopy sweater test for some travel privileges or educational privileges or work privileges or something like that? First of all, never, never, never take the long Q-tip up the nose. Never, never lived. I want to say die on that hill to set that boundary. Like, no, I will never do that. You can actually get through your life without ever having to do that. What if you had, I would say, do not do anything where you're actually inserting something like into your nostrils or into your cheek. If you ever had to, you could take a type of test that only involves your saliva, but I would take it out of your mouth first and then place it into the testing equipment. But all of those tests, the fictional lateral flow test fictionally is also like embarrassingly prone to error, as you can fictionally test like a fictional acidic drink, such as a Coca-Cola or a lemonade, and it will fictionally show the presence of fictional pathogens. It's a hallucination. So the fictional world that we're talking about, the fairy tale was put forward. There was a very, very evil magician that was going up people's noses and into their bloodstreams and into their lungs, and that you had to be sure to get these long Q-tips put up your nose to see if you had the evil magician inside of you. But none of the tests actually showed the presence of whether the evil magician was there. The truth is the evil magician was there. The evil magician was there. And the evil magician had like a fire-breathing dragon, a fire-breathing dragon that spewed fire for the whole entire village, activating the evil magician that was inside of some people. And that was really what was making them sick. So, you know, I talk about this in class all the time, genuine seriousness here. And I hope that you can see, I hope that you can decipher all of my first jocularity and second of all, selective language. But for real, the reason why in the Middle Ages, before objective materialist science and Sir Isaac Newton, people couldn't see microbes. It was an invisible realm to them. And because they could not see microbes, they made up most outlandish stories about where disease actually originated from. And this is also why they were justified in throwing their human waste everywhere. Once lenses were created, not only for glasses and telescopes to see far away, lenses were created that made it possible to see very close up, microscopes, and made it possible to perceive the presence of actual microbes, tiny animals that were the true origins of disease. And here we are talking about one-celled organisms, bacteria. Viruses are actually much more difficult to see and are not easily perceived through the lenses that were created in the beginning of microscopes. So we're talking about like, you know, the 1500s and the 1600s, very, very long time ago. And even today, it is very, very difficult to visually see the presence of viruses. In fact, I think that it is necessary in our fictional realm that we're talking about today to reconsider the idea of what viruses are and whether they are actually being perceived or whether there is some projection, a mental expectation or hallucination or illusion of their presence. Because a lot of the ways of perceiving DNA and ways of perceiving the DNA that is presumed to be a part of viruses are wildly inaccurate. And I didn't know that really up until the past 3 or 4 days. So I was swimming around in the sewer of what is known as social media and came upon some mind states that I had to interact with. And I learned from those interactions how erroneous their worldview is and how erroneous some of these fictional ways of being able to find out about the existence of viruses is. And then I realized how much they're living in a fantasy, self-created fantasy land. And that self-created fantasy land would be just their own personal folly if fictionally they were not connected through either their biofield or the activity of their DNA or their mentality to other people. And if they also were not supporters of or creators of public health policy, which might make it necessary to certain things in order to receive certain privileges in life. So they are believing in hallucinations and illusions, but if enough of them believe in those illusions and make them requirements, sorry, my treadmill just stopped. It has an automatic off feature. Requirements for participation in society, those guys are setting the hurdles that you must jump over in order to participate in society. They're like, well, first you must, whatever, kiss the magic ring 3 times, and then you are allowed to go to college or have a job or travel. And they are hallucinating and they are in love with their hallucinations, but they're controlling of other people's behavior. None of this stands according to the stratification doctrine, where they should be in a wildly different level of reality than you. So what we can recognize is that you're not in a state of total freedom. Particles are not circulating to their correct levels. What you have are semi-permeable barriers between levels. So you can be a VIP and you're down here at the gas station with the bums. This is not right. This is not right. And if you were getting what you actually deserved, you would immediately circulate up to the VIP lounge. And similarly, there are some people who are in the VIP lounge living in Beverly Hills completely as imposters, and they have only achieved their state of high energy excitation through siphoning energy off others. And that is what upholds their consciousness in an elated and falsely, I don't want to say divinely connected, but they tell themselves a story about their ascendedness, their enlightened, how enlightened they are and how divinely connected they are. And it is 100% hallucinatory. That is also what they're hallucinating. So they're not only hallucinating the presence of things that don't actually exist and then justifying certain organizations of society based upon that, but their own mind state and sense of self is 100% based upon the misery and energy harvesting and enslavement and even sexual slavery of other innocent people. And you guys know this as loosh, which is, energy harvesting, misery harvesting. And again, as I said, like the energy of sexual violation being harvested and misappropriated, and trauma, basically harvesting trauma to be able to hold themselves. So they held up on a scaffolding of trauma into the VIP lounge. And if you took away that Jenga tower of trauma, then those consciousnesses would never be up there. They would be down here where they belong, in the sewer. So when you look around to the world, in the fictional worlds that fictional inhabitants might live in, please know that that is what you are perceiving. But to refocus and go back to what DNA is and how it's being perceived. So I don't even know enough about these technological imaginary tests to be able to tell you in exactly what way they're doing things wrong, if they're doing things wrong. Because now I'll tell you how I see DNA. And I hope that none of these fictional scientists look at my video here. This is not for them. I am not here to educate them. Nothing about what I have to say, I think, is going to be changing them in a healthy or productive way. And I don't think that they are redeemable. I don't think that you can take them and be like, oh, like, look at you. You've been educated all wrong. And I'll just be sure to educate you in the correct way. I think that they are malignancies that have intentionally been educated wrong, that they cling to their miseducation, and that they do not want to be reformed in a corrected way. So, like there's that movie Lucy, where you have a super intelligent, otherworldly, elevated, amplified person who comes into your world and is then talking to an array of scientists, and they're all like busy with their notepads, writing stuff down. They're like, tell us more, we want to learn more. This is not in the fictional reality. Like that's a fictional reality. That is not what things are like in the fictional reality. You could put like the most hyper intelligent being in front of these scientists, and they'd be like, no, we prefer not to learn from you. Like we like our illusions and hallucinations. We prefer our disempowering hallucinations, please, and we're going to stick with that and keep on destroying the world. Okay, go away, go away, you hyper intelligent being, you. Yeah, no, they are not interested in any way. So I do not feel compelled to try to reform them in any way, but they must be disempowered because their tone deafness to what DNA is harming all of you. One, and I want to talk about what DNA is. So just keep me on track with that, but let me just rant. So, some of these guys, they're like fictional. I'm a cancer research scientist. I'm doing good stuff for people. I'm gonna learn and make things better to make you guys feel better in case you get sick. And that's like my SpongeBob face. It's like, no, they're actually doing very, very horrible harm. Although some scientists might portray themselves and portray their work to themselves as being a wonderful gift to the rest of society, their research methods are horrific. And I'm talking about cell cultures. So I only recently learned about this, and I didn't even know how bad it was, but they are making bad food. They're saying that they're making bad food to be able to find out the recipes to be able to make good food, but their bad food emanates outward into the world. So fictional. Let's say that you have a petri dish full of malignant, cancerous cells. It's not just sitting there disconnected from everything else. It is playing bad music. And let's say you're like, I'm a researcher and I'm going to do this to fix things. You're making things worse. You're not fixing things. They are making things worse. And that is true of all of these cell cultures. So not only of things that would be considered hugely invasive, like any kind of non-consensual cloning or non-consensual cell line and replications that would be made, they take from, what do you think they do if you get a cheek scraping? I want to say, girl, like, what do you think they're doing with those cheek scrapings? Sorry, my mouth did not even say that correctly. But when you give them some of yourselves through something like a cheek scraping, or even worse, like whatever, a scraping of your genitals, your cervix, or something like that, it's horrible. Just don't do it. They take it and they proliferate it. Like they grow more of them in a petri dish. And that's you. It's growing more of you, fictionally, in a fictional petri dish, external to your body. And then what if they do weird stuff to the parts of you that are in a petri dish somewhere? It actually can have a huge draining and diminishing impact on you in your body because this. And if I seem mad, it's because I am mad. Because they do horrible things to people all the time without caring that they're doing horrible things to people while pretending they're doing something that is valid to prevent a disease that they're actually creating in other people. It's terrible, terrible. And that is a convoluted self-story that people do to assuage their own conscience when they are really giant a-holes doing bad things to all of us. So avoid anything that will ever be a type of DNA sampling. Avoid anything that would ever be a DNA sequencing, including anything that's going to tell you supposedly about your heritage. No, never relinquish that to others to decipher or own in any way. And do not allow cell cultures to be made from your body. And if any cell cultures have been made non-consensually, it is necessary to remove your life force energy from them immediately. Like if you could imagine strings of energy that connect you fictionally to any kind of petri dish where a part of you might be growing externally, you must cut those strings of energy so that those cells die. And I know that you have an innate lust for life. And you're like, but I don't want to kill me. I know you don't want to kill you. You have to kill those cells that are you, that's been taken from you against your will. Or maybe you've acquiesced to having scrapings of your body taken. You must break that contract, revoke consent. You must revoke consent and say, I do not consent to you having my body parts fictionally in a fictional petri dish and doing very real harm to you non-locally or to any aspect of DNA. So the experiments that are being done fictionally upon DNA are harmful to individuals, harmful to the whole, harmful to the fabric of space-time. And if they were to continue in an unfettered way, it would absolutely just destroy reality. You can't have that. And you can't say, well, just let's make this stress test of the universe, of the cosmic infrastructure, and see how much sewage can be pumped into the blood supply before the patient dies. And that is terrible. And that is a disease that's called sepsis. And it makes people die very fast. If you do that, they die fast. And you should not gamble with the entire cosmic infrastructure. In fact, I exist as an augmentation that the cosmos created for itself because it does not want to have doo-doo, sepsis in its blood supply, creating death and misery and ending time, essentially. So yeah, really necessary to clean up a lot of stuff so that that doesn't happen and prevent a lot of stuff so that that doesn't happen. So now let's talk about what DNA actually is, and like in a less inflammatory tone. In fact, I should drink tea. Have a cleansing tea. DNA is an alive presence. It is sentient. It is not just a series of letters or numbers or a code. It has behavior. And that behavior is literally a dance. DNA, when you see it while it is in its alive state and connected to time, is dynamic. So it is not always what humans show it as a Y or an X chromosome. That is a tiny portion of DNA's behavior in its lifespan. When a cell is going to replicate, it's going to divide itself from the parent cell into two daughter cells, and that's going to make the next generation. The DNA wraps itself into the chromosomal structure in the same way that you might pack your bags to be able to go on an airplane. You got to fit a lot of clothes into a small amount of container because they have that thing. They're going to measure your suitcase and make sure it's not too big to fit on the plane, right? So you have to get everything in there super efficiently. And I have studied this. And the most efficient way to put your clothing into your suitcase is rolling it up, not folding, but rolling. So you want to roll everything up like it's a sausage or like it's a scroll. And then that's how you can use your space most effectively. Guess what? This is also how you can use the space of your DNA most effectively. I didn't say that correctly. This is how you can pack up your DNA most effectively so that it will fit inside of a tiny nucleus. So the nucleus inside of your cell is very, very tiny. Like, I don't know if it's even the width of a human hair. It's so tiny, but your DNA is so long that if you stretched it out, it would literally be the length of a football field. It's a lot of DNA. So how does that enormous, long musical score fit into a little tiny nucleus? And the answer is through supercoiling. Supercoiling is the efficient packing structure to take a long string of DNA and turn it into chromosome. So it is like if you've ever taken a thread or a piece of rope and you keep on twisting it together and together and together, the more that you twist it, the more that it doubles back on itself and it makes more complex windings with itself and then essentially makes like a giant knot or crochet structure. This is the process of supercoiling that is in DNA. And this is somewhat accurate about how DNA actually behaves when you need to go on your trip and create the container for the next generation. At all other times, DNA is what is known as chromatin, which is the unfurled sweater, a big, giant, vibrating mass of yarn that's inside of the nucleus. And it is super, I would say beautiful, movement. Like it is not static at all. It is like the strings of guitar. It is always moving. It floats in a sea of super purified water, which is also very, very important and crucial to know about anatomically in your body, because the water is an antenna for consciousness and for divinity. And the DNA itself is also an antenna for consciousness and for divine information. And the two of them together, in the correct circumstances, create a direct connection to higher dimensional or higher levels of intelligence that guides you and informs your biological life. And that is what the Snoopy sweater actually is. It's a big giant thing that says how to live your life and how to stay alive and what God wants you to do in every moment. And the objective materialists in the fictional world that we're talking about do not read the sweater, and they do not care what the Snoopy image looks like. They don't care about the higher dimensional directives. They don't care about the higher dimensional harmonics. I have printed on my Snoopy sweater right here. Or what is correct weaving of the genetic material together and what is incorrect. And there is a correctness or an incorrectness. So when I've talked with you about different timelines and how you have like some that end in the membrane of death, but only one that goes all the way back to the source of consciousness and brings you to your destination successfully or completes the circuit. All of the other timelines are erroneous calculations because they end in death. So there is definitely a right answer when we are talking about the way that DNA is arranged. It's non-arbitrary. Some DNA arrangements lead towards continued life and vitality, and some DNA arrangements or combinations of events in time lead to a loss of vitality and then eventual death. And these are non-arbitrary structures. So it's not truthful that it's only about a recipe, like the dark magicians who are like, for Eye of Newt, one of this, to spin around 3 times onto the full moon, and then you get this. No, you cannot have a recipe for something that is a jazz innovation that is new and unique in each moment. So what you need to do for your body in this moment in order to achieve coherence and longevity is different from every other person in the world, from every squirrel or butterfly in the world, and also is going to change from moment to moment. So sometimes I tell you, you have to eat the chocolate eclair. That is what is on the menu for you. That is what the divine Snoopy sweater mandates to you. Eat the chocolate eclair and you will live for forever. Hooray! But it's not a recipe. You can't be like, oh, in order to live for forever, every Tuesday at 3:52 p.m., eat a chocolate eclair. Nope, it only works today. Today is chocolate eclair day and this is chocolate eclair moment. At other times, you will live for forever if you eat like whatever, a nice kale salad at 3:52. It's not always the same. So the dark magicians who like to control and manipulate reality for their own purposes, fictionally, love to create predictable recipes. And they also love to use mechanistic structures, and they also love to use things through logic structures, kind of like AI, because they only know how to work in already formed recipes. I've said that again. They don't really know how to innovate in the moment. And class, tap, tap, tap. What do we know about flying rainbow lasagna? Well, we know that it is the essence of unpredictability. We know that it is about innovating in the moment. And we know that it is about creating and generating new patterns that might never have been experienced before. And this is the thing that Black magicians hate the most. They're like, we cannot deal with that lasagna over there, constantly rearranging reality, constantly changing the parameters of reality. I can't bake any evil cakes with that lasagna going on over there in the distance. She sure is inconvenient to me as I pretend to be an evil magician. But my lasagna activities have been 100% ethical because I am here doing what anybody else has the right to do, just to inhabit a body, share your ideas in the world. This is what artists and musicians and people have done for millennia. Get a body, you learn language, you talk about your ideas, you might write them down, you might make a painting, you might make an artwork, a music, a dance, and you influence people with it. That is righteous. And what I've done is offer these things to people. So I come here with this new genetic dance capability and higher dimensional math. And I've always offered it to people in freedom to say, if you'd like to be a part of this, I will share this with you. That does not mean that you get to have access to my whole entire private inner world, or you get to eat my energy. No, no, that's what the evil magicians thought. I'm like, no, get off of me. No, I offer a template. You can't eat me, but you can take my recipe and what I do, and then you can be like, okay, Aurora did it like this. I don't have the same ingredients as Aurora, but maybe I have analogs, and maybe I can do something similar. And this is what I do with all of you beautiful people who are in my class and in my dance group. I offer to you new patterns that I very much encourage you to embody and make unique or personalized to you and to your life structure, and then apply them to your DNA, your position in time, and what are your needs for healing, uplift, rectification, and reconnection to divinity. Because you should also follow the dictates of the divine information on your Snoopy sweater. When your DNA is coiled in just the right way, you should get higher dimensional information. So the destruction of human DNA was a disconnect, unplugging humans from divinity, unplugging humans from higher dimensional truth, and greatly disempowering and making humans very vulnerable in not being able to hear that truth. And what Flying Rainbow Lasagna does is gives you a new way to be able to rearrange your DNA to reconnect, get back to divinity, and get all of those messages that are waiting for you in your cosmic inbox. Like, I don't know what your inbox is like on your computer, but some people have a thing where it's like 3,247 emails that you haven't accessed yet. You have that many in your cosmic inbox. Like, really, truly, the divine mind is trying to talk to you so much. And it's like, oh, telling you this, telling you this, telling you this, telling you this. And you're not getting your messages. So they just float there in your inbox. And when you make the genetic reconnection to divinity, you get flooded with light. All of those insights about you and about your life and about what you needed to be doing and about what you need to do right now in this moment in order to stay alive and achieve eternal life. You finally get that reconnection. So now you comprehend being disconnected from that level of information is very, very dangerous and can lead you towards death. Reconnecting to that level of information is pro-life. It's going to help you to stay alive and to thrive as an organism, because now you're getting genuine directives that are going to help you to navigate time from your personal position and to know what is right for you in each moment. And also the stars and the galactic center, as I've spoken about for the past several weeks in class, are the great conductor, tap, 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 the great conductor, and the great organizers organizing all of this. So when you follow the directives that are woven into your Snoopy sweater, it's not in conflict with the other musicians. You know, when you are in a band or in a symphony, you get the music and it tells you, like, here's where you play these notes, and then here's where you shut up. And it's called rest. Don't play. Let other people play. Parts of what you're doing is learning to harmonically coordinate what you're doing with other minds and other organisms and other bodies. That's absolutely essential for yourself and for your planet and for our galactic citizenship. Being in the VIP lounge, living in Beverly Hills, not hanging out with the bums at the gas station, all right? Drink a little bit more of my tea. Thank you for allowing me to hydrate over here. So DNA is hugely connected to larger structures. Your DNA dance is important to you, but it is also important to everything else that you are touching upon. Time is literally a complex multidimensional tapestry, and all of these threads that tie together. These are load-bearing threads. They are causality structures. Like this thing happened over here because it was tied into this thing over here and it bounced off of this thing over here. And if any of these things didn't exist, then you would not have reality. All right. So the very, very poorly informed fictional scientists of objective materialist land are messing with all of these causality structures by, in a very tone-deaf way, combining together notes that would never ordinarily be combined together. When you start to do flying rainbow lasagna in your body, you really can rearrange your present state or the potentials of your DNA into your exalted form. But that is not the same as random or arbitrary rearrangements. So when I came into this body and I started to rearrange the DNA of, this form into its optimum state, I didn't make my eyes like neon purple or whatever, give myself 12 elbows. No, I optimized the features of this body. Because when some people, especially fictional military people, are looking at the capacity to rearrange DNA, they're like, oh, like we can make someone super strong, or maybe we can make them bulletproof, or maybe we can make it so they could see in the darkness, or maybe we can give them fangs or claws or this or that. It's like, that is not what you're supposed to have. Those are monstrosities. And that when you start to do that type of stuff, then you start to really mess things up a lot, because you're not at all going with the optimization of your form, going with like, what are your parameters? Why do you think that having, like a saber-toothed tiger, like having giant fangs, like why is that positive? Why would neon green eyes be positive? Like none of these things are positive. So you have to understand there is an optimum form for your body that has nothing to do with either militaristic objectives or cultural standards of beauty. And please emphasize that last part to yourself, because cultural standards of beauty are bull doo-doo. You must comprehend that real beauty is from the total health and exaltedness of organism, from a person or a form of life being the utmost of what it can be. So if my little dog is a Chihuahua and she is in her exalted form, that doesn't mean that she's going to be shaped like whatever, a German Shepherd or a Great Dane. Like she's not going to all of a sudden get bigger. She's going to be a great version of who and what she is, which is a little dog. Okay. So people come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. And the exalted form of who and what you are might not conform to the beauty standards of this time and place. You must celebrate your own form, the tone of your skin, the shape of your face, the shape of your features, your body proportions, like how long your arms and legs are, what your size of your breasts are, and what the size of your ass is. Any of these things, you must, achieve optimum size and shape for your body, not cultural beauty standards. And once again, that also relates to levels of amount of body fat, athleticism, other things. No offense to ballerinas. I'm a dancer and I love ballerinas, but what I do not love is what ballerinas are doing to their feet. Like that is not a normal thing to do. That's actually, I know it is a cultural convention to twirl on your tiptoes, but that's not actually what your feet were made for. And there's a lot of cultural engineering that goes into making it possible for people to do that. It's kind of unnatural, and I'm a little bit concerned when I see people doing it. But I do love to encourage dance, okay? I'm just not that much about the torture of people's feet. It's a cultural convention of what people think is beautiful, and they certainly have created shoe technology to make it happen, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the correct thing to do with your body. So that goes for any type of extreme body modifications, extreme stretching routines. And that speaks to also the yoga community. Again, I love yoga community people, but please know that not everybody is even shaped to be able to do the downward dog. And that is looked at as like the primary original first pose you're supposed to do. And it's like, that is not really that good for a lot of people's hips and back. And that's like the first thing you're supposed to do. So everything has to be customized. The answer to all of this is release the projections of what is beautiful and be your most beautiful self. Release the projections of what is generalized dance or athletic ability and dance in the way that is correct for you. And that is everything. When I do my Tuesday morning dance class, I encourage people to use their legs. Like, if you're going to do a V with your legs, like some people can make their legs go like this and some people can make their legs go like this. Like, they are both good. They are both good. Some people are more flexible than others. Some people have longer limbs than others. Like, you need to make your body the best version of body that it can be. And sometimes that is not able to be compared. It's not in a measurable comparison to other people's bodies. All right. And I will tell you this also. Our bodies were not made to wear out in 100 years. No. It's like my ridiculous face. No. No, your bodies were made to live for hundreds or sometimes even thousands of years. And when you optimize the genetic dance and the way that you're propelling yourself through time, then you're able to live these exalted, long amounts of time and to have continuity of consciousness. But also that means that you're not living in a garbage environment, you're in a pristine environment. And it also means that you are 100% in control of your journey. Because many of us would be like, well, yeah, like I'd like to live in an unpolluted environment. Look outside. It ain't that easy, kid. It's very polluted out there. I know, like we'd all like to live in an unpolluted environment, and then we'd all live for forever. You got to work towards that because some of these, mutilation fictional scientists are really junking up the place with stuff that doesn't belong there, and that is against the social contract because that is reducing your longevity. Like I have conflict with Elon Musk all the time. I'm a vocal opponent of him. And again, he's a celebrity and the richest man on earth. I think he can take criticism from me. He can bear the critical voices from me. It's not like bullying or something like that. But he's beaming 5G doo-doo from Starlink on everybody. And he's reducing each one of us longevity. The longevity of the human form, but also the longevity of all of the organisms because the 5G frequency involves photosynthesis, insect life, microbial life, soil microbes, everything. He's making everything junky. Or less vital is a better word. He is reducing the vitality of everything that's here and reducing the longevity of everything that's here. And I don't remember him asking for my permission to do so. So I do not consent, and I clutch my pearls at his extreme rudeness. And what cheek that he would do that. But no, really totally inappropriate. So clearly there are a lot of things that are environmental, not in your direct control, and that are reducing longevity. But in a pristine world, you have the capacity to move in a frictionless existence and to continually regenerate in ways that are really quite miraculous and seemingly supernatural. So basically everything that human objective materialist scientists have told you about DNA, fictionally, you should throw out the fictional window because it's just very, very wrong. Because they will teach you about things like telomeres, other things like that. Just know, like, humans have been genetically modified and limited many times, including the insertion of aging or chronological decrepitude programs and behaviors in DNA. But do not believe in the supposed structures that have been supposedly perceived. I am now skeptical of all of it. But here's what is truthful about DNA. DNA is shaped like this type of ladder, like, two rows that then have different struts in between them. And it is shaped like a waveform. That is truthful. The waveform has vibration, just like the strings of guitar. So it's not just this static string. It is vibrating and doing things. And then in the alive cell, what the DNA does is it's continually splicing itself. So why does this happen? Because in order for DNA to fit inside of the nucleus, it has to be curled up tightly. And that's like scrolls. And if the scrolls are curled up, your body cannot read them. There are it's called RNA messengers. You might have heard about RNA in the news, fictionally, in the fictional world, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the fictional world with stuff that is called RNA. You would not want any of those fictional RNAs to get inside of your life. What is RNA? It is a messenger. And so what you have is your DNA that is like a library, that is an archive of special information that should never be cracked up. It should stay clean. So those are the holy of holies, special sacred areas in your body. And the DNA and the story of you should be like archival texts and scrolls that are protected in a museum. And the only person who should ever enter your museum or your library and look at those scrolls is you. That's it. No one else. Authorized personnel only, and that equates to you. Your DNA, your library, your museum, it should be encrypted so that only you can go in there. There are aspects of your own self that are called RNA, that are the workers or the messengers that are authorized to go through the nuclear membrane to read the scrolls that are in there. So imagine a big, giant, ancient sacred scroll. You have to open up, and then the RNA messengers can read what's going on inside of there. And what they do is they make a copy. I call a copy a Xerox. I'm sorry, I'm like an artifact from another century here. But you make a photocopy of the blueprints and architectural plans, and then take the copy out of the museum and bring it to the work site where the construction workers are actually there. They're not only building proteins like your eyes that are brown or your elbows, but they're also building reality structures. And the RNA copies, they can be you can get coffee, you can get like food on it, like, because you're gonna get a sandwich, you're gonna get sushi, you're gonna drip your soy sauce all over the work plans while you're busy building the construction at the construction site. And I don't know, in my imaginary world, the workmen eat sushi and they're kind of like dripping the wasabi on the plans, even though they probably are not eating sushi. But you don't mind, because those are disposable copies, and the original scrolls stay in the nuclei and they stay nice and clean. And this is a good way of doing stuff. This is like, I want to say, this has been doing business for a long time in reality. But the very, very erroneous and malignant fictional scientists learned a little bit about what's going on with this, and they learned ways of being able to inhibit the creation of those RNA blueprints, or to hijack them, or to create erroneous or edited blueprints. And that's definitely not adding to health in your world. And it is an insult to the truth that is held in the Museum of Consciousness, which is your genetic library. Shiki has arrived. Shiki has arrived. She's right here, just playing with her toy, and we can say hi. There we go. And we'll see about if we need some bribes. Okay. I want to talk about a lot of things, but I just looked at my notes and I was like, oh, I have to remind you that. So your DNA is also part of your chakra system or toroidal energy form. And your toroidal energy form, you have these tori in your DNA at the level of supercoiling that is known as a solenoid. I didn't make up these names. And also, I am now hugely skeptical of a lot of things that the malignant objective materialist scientists are using to supposedly look at the behavior of DNA. But here's what I know to be truthful. DNA does knit itself together into complexities. And the complex structures that it knits itself together into are made out of stored kinetic energy. That is what happens in a spring, or like a slinky, or supercoiling. When you twist together yarn or string or anything, you're putting kinetic energy into it. You're putting spirals or vortex energy into it. And the more that you put into it, the more stored up energy it contains. So in order for the workmen to make their RNA copies of what is stored in your genetic library, have to unroll the scrolls. The rolled up scrolls is called methylation. Methylation is the capacity to selectively roll or unroll scrolls. Not everybody's body has the same capacity to do methylation. Some people have interesting genetic mutations, actually 60% of the population in some areas, so it is not a minority, that is called MTHFR, which I know seems like it is a shortened version of a curse word, but it is not. It is a particular type of gene. And again, now that we're talking about this, like, I'm super skeptical of all of these sequencers and machines and ways of looking at it, but we'll talk about it as a reality because people that have those genetic markers have sometimes problems with methylation. And this is evidenced in biological and physical behaviors. Some of them have difficulties with processing out aluminum and detoxing it from their bodies. Also, sometimes problems with metabolizing the folic acid that is added to a lot of processed white flour in products like bread products and pastries and stuff like that. So the flour that is used in a lot of places, it's called enriched. And at a certain point, the very badly mistaken materialist scientists in this fictional world started to put folic acid into wheat products because they're like, oh, this helps to prevent neural tube defects in babies that are growing in their mother's tummies. If you eat enough of this bread that's got this folic acid in there, it will give you a special vitamin. Your baby won't be born deformed. Let's put it in there for everyone. But actually, it turns out that 60% of the population has a gene that makes it impossible to actually enzymatically use the folic acid, and it just builds up in their brains, causes a lot of neurological problems, including like dementia and autism, and it's really, really bad for their babies. And when their babies get exposed to it, their babies have problems too. And that is MTHFR. If you have that gene or that structure, that tendency, it's much better for you to eat folate, which is in green leafy vegetables, not the fake vitamin that's called folic acid that they put into the wheat flour. So eat darn spinach, all right, and get your folate. Do not eat the poisoned flour of this stuff. And if you want to know more about MTHFR, educate yourself. But some of the interesting things, people that have that tend to be connective tissue disorders, very like fine skin, so skin that tends to get bruised or have stretch marks more easily, some skin that is not tough, or like I said, hyperflexibility, or sometimes that is connective tissue stuff, like your bones and tendons are sometimes too flexible or separate apart, and there can be joint injuries and problems as a result of that. Midline birth defects. This is the midline of the body, and birth defects can be anything from cleft palate, tongue ties, heart defects, aortic defects, inversions like mirroring when the organs are born on the wrong side of the body, and other forms of deformations of how like the esophagus and the intestines are formed in the body. And also umbilical hernias, super umbilical hernias. That's all stuff on the midline, stuff that involves your navel. And also sometimes non-existence of fascia, the connective tissues and the protective coverings in areas on the midline. So it could be like in the chest and in the intestines, and also sometimes deformation of the rib cage that can make the rib cage either smaller on one side or caved in on one side, and that can have an impact on heart function. And there's a lot of other things too. These are just like, that's just tip of the iceberg. And sometimes there's non-lethal signifiers that are like, they call it a stork's kiss. And these are these particular types of birth marks that are found on babies that are almost always on the midline. Sometimes it's on the forehead here. Sometimes it's on the back of their head or on the back of their neck, or even like up above their little butt, kind of like, right where they have their dimples. Spinal bifida. Failure to close the spine in some levels of the baby's development. weaknesses and openings in the spine. And also that's why the cleft palate is part of that. These are all midline birth defects. The failure to complete the production of the face when the baby is in its gestational form. Sorry, like that was all just like really, really hard, intellectual information to be able to try to articulate and get across to you. Okay, but educate yourself and your family, because those are people, if you have any of those things in you or in your family, that should not be getting even the traditional forms of supposed immune system amplifications that some of these, even non-genetic ones, that they've been doing to people for a long time because of the aluminum that is in there. Avoid aluminum at all costs. Do not cook with aluminum. Do not cook with aluminum utensils. Do not cook with tin foil on your food. Do not use beauty products with aluminum in it. Because of why, class? Because of methylation, Aurora. That's correct. Because of methylation. Because the difficulties with methylation that some people have make it more difficult for them to be able to process out some of these toxins from the environment. And also, if you're a parent of a kid that has these methylation problems, not only you want to help them to avoid aluminum, but there are some very real effective products that can help them. And I'm not a salesperson in any way for this. We want to look into some of these detox products that contain freeze-dried aloe. Freeze-dried aloe? I'm a scientific skeptic. How in the world will that help my child? I'm just going to tell you, it totally helps with some of the digestive issues, the detoxification issues, and is a supportive supplement to help people that have this in their body. And freeze drying the aloe helps to preserve some of these active phytonutrient qualities that are not evident in other ways of eating it. So not everybody can get fresh aloe every day unless you live in like a tropical land. I probably could, like, if we grew it outside here, but that's why I get the product, the freeze-dried aloe. And there are some good aloe juices that you can get to that preserve this quality. So you want to look for the freshest, least processed version of aloe juice. Freeze-dried aloe, it's really going to help you out. Okay. Good. I'm looking at my notes over here. Okay, so what is DNA and what does it actually do? And how do I perceive DNA? So I perceive DNA as a complex time tapestry. And it is just like what you see here printed on my fabric. And it is a series of events and a series of complex calculations, just like music is the end result of a series of events and complex calculations. And when I do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, I am making beautiful music. I've studied music for a long amount of time, and I know how to make notes and harmonic combinations that sound good together. When I have been perceiving some of what is going on here in the world very recently, within the past 5 years, that is terrible music. And it is literally like cringeworthy, nails on a chalkboard, that level of discomfort for me to perceive what is going on with that. So once again, there's interconnectivity here where it's not acceptable for others to be doing that stuff to themselves or to their family members, because I'm going to be hearing it and feeling it and sensing it, and you're not alone in your own private kiddie pool. Now let's get to some imagery, and I also want to check to make sure if you've got any questions or comments over here, but I want to show you pictures. Here we go. Oh, no problem. Kim says that she's got to leave the meeting a little bit early today, sending lots of love and gratitude to me and Cheeky, and love and gratitude to fellow dancers. Thank you so much for being here. And I always understand if people cannot be all the way through class. Never worry. And Michelangelo says, no gazing today. They have got some chemtrails in the sky, and there's nothing there. No good sunlight. Okay. So, and ask a good question. Says, how are you supposed to get away from the aluminum when it's in the trails above us among strontium, barium, iridium, etc.? Exactly. You ask an excellent question, because it's not by accident that a lot of what is particulated into the air is aluminum, and that the MTHFR affects people who have it cannot effectively process out that aluminum. And I didn't even give you the really interesting, I want to be like Kermit sipping the tea, be like, girl, I didn't even give you the really interesting stuff about MTHFR. That it comes from Akhenaten, who was this weird ancient guy in Egypt We can't really make provisions about whether he was good or whether he was bad, but he was definitely some kind of a weird hybrid, and he put those genes into the population, and they have proliferated very, very far. Another famous MTHFR guy is Abe Lincoln. So some of these like tall, skinny, weird looking dudes, that's some of it, but it's not just tall or slender people. It's in a lot of people now. But yeah, Akhenaten, he was not a regular guy. So hold on. I have to be like, do my Kermit meme, but I want to really drink. But let me answer your question too. Because you guys have to look into like Akhenaten and Nefertiti and how they were involved in a reformation of the profound iniquity at their time in ancient Egypt and their attempts to create a breakaway civilization at their place called Amarna that was meant to be a reconnection to real divine solar connection. So Akhenaten, not a total endorsement of the man. I think he was a fraught character, but they were trying to bring people back to the original Egyptian connection to the sun as solar deity and away from the crapola polytheistic worship of nonsense deities on the lower astral. Okay. Incredibly difficult to protect yourself from what is sprayed above. That's why it is done. So, there are some things that you can do within your home in terms of filtering the air quality in your home. I have an electrostatic. It's not a filter, but it is a way of pulling particles from the air. So it's from the sharper image, and it basically has a plate or a series of fins inside of there that are electrified plates, and they draw imperfect particles to them. And you have to occasionally take rubbing alcohol and clean off the plates. So it is different than a filter. A filter has like a weave like this, and air passes through the filter and the weave catches tiny particles. The particles that are the aluminum particles that are things that are sprayed in the air and the things that we want to keep out of our bodies, they're so tiny that the HEPA filters and the type of traditional filters like this really don't prevent them from coming inside. Think about like smoke and how tiny the particles are in smoke and how effectively that comes in through like the cracks around your windows and around your door frames and other things like that. These are the particles that come in the atmosphere as a result of these different, very, very malignant policies that have been going on for a long amount of time that are much, much more than just about weather engineering. They are also about consciousness engineering. So I got one of these ionic type of air purifiers, and that works very effectively. I also use ozone within my home. And California is where I live, and it's a state that has outlawed ozone, declaring it a carcinogen and saying you're not allowed to have ozone creators in your house. But I got a nice little one that's made by a company called Heaven Bird, because that's the best name in the world, right? Easy to remember. And it was like $50 on Amazon. And so in order to, get it, like I'd someone in a different state receive it for me and then send it to me here. But I use that all the time. And so I use the ozonator to be able to clean my water filter. Like I use that for my Berkey water filter, but I also use that like just putting the ozone into the air. And so in your home, like I have a small home, you can pretty much see it with the view of this camera. So that little ozonator is enough for me to be able to use that. But what you want to do is put the ozone into your atmosphere without breathing too much of it in a time when you might not be in the room. So like if I put the ozonator on in the kitchen over there, like I won't stand right directly next to it, but it will ozonate my kitchen. And then of course that air connects to the rest of the house. So if you have a large house, multi-room house with doors between your various areas, what you should do is get a portable home ozonator and move it between areas and turn it on. And it's usually got a little timer, and then shut the door and let it ozonate that room. And then when you're done, you can either let it shut off and let the stuff dissipate, or open the window, let it go out the window or something like that. And this really, really works. And especially like on days when it is I call them cream cheese frosting, very heavy white clouds that are full of kind of like fungal mycoplasma. It's not just particulates. It's like that heavy, gross, again, wet, sopping, mildewy type of feeling. I turn on the ozonator inside on those days so that at least I'm reducing the fungal load, the mycoplasma, the stuff that is in the air. Other very naturally centered things that you can do are to burn sage. Sage has a thujone or thuhone, I'm not sure how to say that word, but it is a particular plant chemical in there that when you rub it on your body or burn it into the air, it kills bacteria and gross stuff. So when you sage, burn like a wand of sage and you put it around your body like this, it literally does clear out your body and clear out your energy field. But if you go around and you sage your house and you put the smoke all around your house, it helps to clear bacterial and pathogen stuff that's in your house. And that's not the same as aluminum, but the aluminum and your the fungus and that other stuff that is sprayed, they are working together. It's not just metal particulates. There's also some, I call it mycoplasma, which is kind of like goo, like a biological goo. And so there's a bunch of different things that are harming you. The things that also help against the aluminum are organite. Organite is passive shielding. So that's not the same as my little protective purple crystals. That is active shielding, which actively assesses the force fields that are in your area and creates an antithesis force field. But organites, let's find a nice example of an organite here. So this is one I'll show you. My friend made this for me years ago. Her name is Arlene, and such a little dusty. Organites, the combination of metallic stuff and crystalline stuff in the resins. If you make these, please wear protective stuff, protective gloves, protective VOC. The gases that are emitted when the two-part solution comes together are really bad and carcinogenic. So protect yourself. But the end result of creating these little piezoelectric type of organites, they really do help to clear the atmosphere and reflect away the particles from your world. So like when I lived in Northern California, there was a lot of spraying up there. I had these all around my garden and it would be heavy white clouds everywhere else, but I would have a little circle of blue sky above my garden. So the organites do work, but then, you know, at a certain point, you'll need more than just that. So I also recognize that it's not the same as against aluminum specifically, but what I have found that really, really works, and this comes from my friend, Vinegar Blue Sky, who taught me this. When we had the retreat and we had very, very heavy white cloud cover and it's like anti-lasagna weather, it was very, very difficult to do our lasagna. So he taught me about boiling a small amount of vinegar outside. Again, this is for like the heavy clouds, but not necessarily going to work for the aluminum itself. But I was skeptical. I admit, I was skeptical. I'm like, vinegar, come on. But tried it out and it really works. So there, what I do, especially on mornings here, if you get up and there's like the heavy chem haze and thick clouds, I have a little ceramic ramekin. Then I have the little tea lights, the little candles that go underneath it, and like a little metal stand. And I put some cheap vinegar in the ramekin up top and light the candles underneath it. And you only need like maybe a few tablespoons of vinegar, not a huge amount, because the candle will, you know, kind of boil it off. And you just want to make sure that the vinegar starts to get boiled off and goes up into the atmosphere. And like, Aurora, like, come on, like, is this really going to do something? It really does something. I am telling you. And it might take an hour, but what I have found, like every morning, if I get up at like 6:30, it's bad weather, set the vinegar outside and make sure your fire's safe. Don't set anything on fire. And then I go back in an hour and the sun starts to come out. It makes the clouds clear up. So there's really something about the acetic acid boiling and going upward into the atmosphere that starts to kind of like break apart whatever is happening up there and make it so that the sun burns it off, it clears out, like it does something. I don't even know why or how it works. The vinegar really works. It's not just some kind of folk tale. I know that works. Shungite also works very, very effectively, both externally and internally, to help to protect you from the particulates and the metals, and specifically cesium-137, which is an end result of human fission nuclear power in your world. That, you know, is Fukushima. When you got Fukushima in 2011, And there's been cesium-137 flowing into the Pacific Ocean for over 10 years, like irradiating your whole planet. And that stuff is in like the rainwater and the milk and the dairy cows, and it's all over at this point. It's just everywhere. So the shungite really helps. Get a piece for your water filter or your carafe, your canteen. Noble elite shungite in your water is going to help protect you internally from some of these heavy metals. And also externally, you can wear the shungite. If you drink it, you must get Noble Elite. If you wear it, you can get regular old cheap shungite. Where's a piece of regular old cheap shungite? This is what I put my coffee on top of. Sorry, that's why I have to move everything to be able to show it to you. You can see like I have my coffee rings on top of there, but this was like 20 bucks because it's not a special piece of shungite, just regular shungite. And shungite is similar to orgonite. Passive shielding definitely helps, definitely repels the metallic fragments away. You can also put this sucker on top of your Wi-Fi router, around other Bluetooth emitters, around or on top of your cell phone. These things are great. And also, like, again, I usually put my coffee cup on top of here. It will energize your water so that your water or your coffee or whatever that is going to have the energy patterns of shungite and help you immensely. Internally, in terms of detoxifying yourself from the aluminum that you are inevitably ingesting in the world, there are some different things that you can take that will kind of help you with that. If you can bear the taste of it, cilantro definitely helps. And you should not take a huge amount of that. You should take like a quarter of a cup, like enough to sprinkle on top of your taco or whatever. And you should take it in conjunction with the spirulina or chlorella. And your spirulina or chlorella should be without heavy metals in it as well, because not every brand is reputable. So I like Sun chlorella. And that helps to sequester the heavy metals out of the body. If you can't tolerate spirulina or chlorella, if it gives you a tummy ache, the best, just neutral absorber for some of these heavy metal stuff, activated charcoal. Just get a giant bag for like 10 bucks of organic bamboo activated charcoal and mix that with some, filtered water and drink that in the morning first thing. And that is really, really going to help you a lot. Don't take activated charcoal like with your food because it will absorb some of the nutrients from your food. You don't get as much food nutrients, but pretty much like activated charcoal is pretty safe. Can't overdose on it. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. I've got it in a tooth brushing type of stuff too that you can really use it for your gum and teeth health as well. So activated charcoal is good stuff. The jury is out on zeolite. I used to use it for many years. I had both powdered clay. That zeolite is also known as clinoptilite and montmorillonite. It is a honeycomb-shaped molecule that does help to gather aluminum particles from your body and help you to poop it out. Gets it out of your digestive tract. But key point is you must find a reputable source of zeolite. It must be uncontaminated. And I think that a lot of the products that are out there now that are either prepared tinctures or the ones that are like super micronized, I'm skeptical of. And it's because they got hijacked. So to reiterate, I used to be a promoter of one of these zeolite tinctures that's named Master Peace. Peace as in like, peace on earth. And I thought it was a great product. And I thought that it was like affordable and good. And then at a certain point, the company changed the way that they were doing business and they changed their payment system. Like they couldn't get paid through PayPal anymore. And they started to get paid through this other weirder, shadier way of doing things. And I was like, none of this feels right. And I think that they changed the quality and purity of their product too. So I think that that's an example of a company that started out good and then got captured. And that now their administrators and their business model is not helping your life. It's not helping goods. It doesn't feel like good in any way. And so I wouldn't say to continue to use that product. If you still have it on your shelf, like it's not going to kill you, but I wouldn't buy more of it. And I have asked them to remove my affiliate, blah, 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 but they never actually did. But I asked them to deactivate my link. So I do not affiliate with them anymore, but I do like Jing Slingers. That's Jing. Slingers, because those are two people that are like people that aren't assimilated and their stuff is still pure. And basically, so if you can find like their tincture is really good, even if pricey, it really does go into the brain and help to clear out heavy metals from there, or the aluminum. Aluminum is technically not heavy metal, but it really does help to clear out the metals from there. And I found very good instantaneous results in clearing that stuff out of my brain and feeling clearer and being able to think better and having better like psychic abilities and everything like that. So if you want to try that, try that. But zeolite, clinoptilite, marmoronite, there's also still a good source in UK. It is called the Clay Cure, dot I think it's .co or .uk. But look them up, and just the import fees are a lot to get to the United States, but it might be less expensive for other people in other places. And the way that you can use that is either you can mix it into a slurry with water and drink it, but also you can put that stuff on like a mask, like make a paste and put it on your skin. And you can also put it in the bath. And I actually think that is the best way to get rid of aluminum. And also from your children. And it's very, very safe. Put it in the bath and just soak in there, and your body, both the heat and the natural processes, like your body wants to release stuff through the skin. It really does help you to release stuff through the skin. I would not recommend any kind of pulsed EMF, no PEMF. Even though people talk all about how like that's good for your body and all these different things, I think that anything with electromagnetism or magnetic fields just exacerbates the. And I used to use this thing that was made by Tony P called the anti-nano bucket. And I'm telling you, that thing just made the proliferation of fibers in my eyes worse. So yellow caution flags. Sometimes you think that you're going to fry your nano and get it out of your body. And sometimes it fries the nano, but then the nano is like, oh, I think I better grow more because somebody fried these circuits. So I have to grow more circuits. So it actually took me a very, very long time to get rid of the excessive fibers that had grown in my eyes, like where I'm looking at everything in the eyeball juice, like you can see them up above on a clear day, like floaters in your eyes. Ivermectin actually helped a lot. Taking ivermectin internally, I do that almost all the time, and I alternate with Fenben, that's called Panicure. And also I've been putting ivermectin on my skin, just the regular stuff that you get from the hay store, the horse supply store. And I put it on any external rashes or places where there are spider veins and breakouts like that. And because I now see all of those as areas of proliferation of this type of metallic mycoplasma parasite stuff, I put it on my feet because I had noticed I had walked through some puddles like years ago that was full of rainwater stuff. The stuff that's in the rain is pathogenic. Until we clear out our skies, it's pathogenic. So now I do not touch the garden tools with my bare hands, and I don't walk barefoot anymore, but I used to a lot. So now I put ivermectin on my feet to try to clean that stuff out. So I think that helps a lot too, but that helps more against like the crud, like not even necessarily like the aluminum. So I hope that that's been a pretty good pronouncement on the different things that you could do. Another thing that really helps that I don't have, but that I would recommend too, if you can access it, sauna. That so that I have a bathtub. It's pointing to my bathroom back there, and I use a bath, to kind of get warmed up and get that type of opening of pores. But if you can get into a sauna, especially an infrared sauna, that's going to be really wonderful for you because that literally helps you to release things through your skin. But again, if you are a person that has difficulty with the natural detoxification pathways, then you might need help, something more than just sauna. So also go with the submersion in a bath with the clay cure, the clinoptilite, and also Oh, the freeze-dried aloe is really going to help you. Aloe, aloe, aloe. So Avril says, Masterpiece Def has nanotech in it and supports building of nanotech. Thank you for that confirmation. Thank you. Yeah, so I cringe because I'm like, oh, like I used to say that they were good and now they're bad. So that's why at any opportunity, I'm here to change, to say, yeah, they used to be good and now they're not good anymore. And that happens a lot. Because everything that we're doing, like we are one step ahead of the nano crapola. We are like, oh, like this is what works. And then it works for a little bit and then they catch up and then like, ah, that doesn't work anymore. So you have to always be upgrading and changing around what you're doing to detoxify and clear your body, because the parasite factory is always trying to upgrade what they are trying to say. Michael says, I pour my filtered water into a copper bottle, kills bacteria, and I also talk to my water and energize it with intention to structure it. Good enough. Talking to, blessing, and structuring your water is beautiful. Your copper bottle is great for certain people. People have different blood types and different genetic quotients, and you will know whether the copper is right for you based upon whether it tastes right to you. So I had one of those copper bottles and I drank out of it for like a couple of weeks, and then my body was like, no more of this. Like you can tell from my face, I'm like, ugh, like I can't do this anymore. I got enough copper in my body. Some people have higher copper needs than others. If you're Rh negative, you're going to need more copper than other people. If you had red hair, you need more copper than other people. If you have green eyes, more copper than other people, and certain other backgrounds, like where your people come from, where your ancestors come from. So experiment with your copper water bottle. If it starts to taste gross, you've had enough copper and you don't need more of it. And Avril says, someone intuitive told me that shungite has graphene oxide at the molecular level in it. Is there any substance to this? So no. So thank you for that opportunity to be able to clarify. Shungite is a naturally occurring form of carbon-60 molecule. The carbon-60 molecule can only be created in zero gravity. So it is presumed that somehow a blob of stuff was created in zero gravity and fell to Earth in the region of kind of the border of Russia and Sweden up there in the far north, like millions of years ago, and created these perfectly formed carbon-60, kind of like honeycomb cages. And that's why they have a particular frequency that they send out that is very anti-radiation. It helps the body to clean up radiation. It has other wonderful levels of longevity by being exposed to that. Now, there are artificial forms of carbon-60 that they make these products called C60. I do not use them and have never used them, and I am super skeptical of them. Because some people use them and they're like, I'm drinking the C60 and feeling great. And I think what they were doing is just making C60 available to the nano in their body. Like, here are some bricks, build something with this, like building materials for the nano to build graphene oxide. So I think that that is very, very questionable. And that it's not, would not even be considered a contaminant. I think the carbon-60 is equivalent of graphene oxide. So graphene oxide is a particular form of carbon nanotubule, and C60 is an artificial form of carbon arranged into certain, molecular formations. It's not that much of a leap, skip, and a jump to recognize, like, you can make carbon nanotubules out of C60. Yeah, but I think that shungite that is natural is a natural form of these honeycomb structures that I don't think is easily hijacked by the nano or demolecularized and repurposed in that way. I think it's good stuff. And so I've been taking the shungite for a long time, and what it does is it goes into your bones. If you have the cesium, the harmful cesium-137, the radioactive stuff in your bones from like living in the world or drinking milk after Fukushima, you can get that stuff out of your body if you eat or drink shungite. Your body will swap it out. Like, I will give you a cesium-137 and you will give me a shungite, and I'll have shungite in my bones and not this fucking bullshit, pardon me for saying that, that is going to cause the neutrinos that will break your DNA, cause cancer and other problems. So the shungite is like an inner protective. I did shungite for years. And after ingesting enough of that, much like the copper, my body said to me, you have enough shungite inside of you now. You don't need to drink more of this. So you guys will feel when the change occurs inside of you, be like, nope, I don't need any more shungite. But up until that point, I think it's really healthy to take tiny amounts of shungite, the kind that like tiny molecules come off in your water. So years ago, like I've been teaching this class for a long time. So here's a cautionary tale. I was telling everybody about like, using shungite, and I think shungite is great. And even like taking shungite powder and putting a tiny amount of it into like, my face cream or my external moisturizers, right? So one of my students heard about that and thought like, they're going to make a face mask out of undiluted shungite powder. She made like a really thick black, paste and put it all over her face to try to get like nanotech out of her body and stuff like that. She had such a giant allergic reaction, such an inflammatory response to doing that. Way too much. Way too much. She became hypersensitized to anything that is the phone, the EMF, the anything. And she said that she had like crystals jumping out of her tear ducts, like way too fast, overwhelming the body. So any type of detoxification process should be slow and sustainable and supportive of your body. You should not try to, I know people also who have tried to do detox from mercury and other things like that. So they'll drink like a super concentrated cilantro tincture and then like feel worse, because what it can do sometimes is your body has sequestered pathogens and impurities into bones and organs. When you do something like drink very concentrated cilantro tincture or put a giant amount of shungite on your face, your body's like, oh, good, let's have all of this stuff come out of storage. And then it can float around and make you feel very sick. And if you're not able to, if your lymph system is not able to get that stuff out fast enough, then it just goes to a different area of the body and then inflames a different area of the body. And I feel this way also with removal of mercury fillings. You can ascend, even if you have mercury fillings in your face. When you get those removed, sometimes it reanimates the mercury that was just stored in your mouth, that then goes like into your brain and into your spine and into your liver, and your body has to try to get out of those places. So unless you do these things properly and with good, supportive, holistic guidance or, someone helping you out, you can make things worse. So please be sensible and find a good holistic practitioner who can guide you through the detoxification process for yourself, for your children, and even for your pets, to make sure that you're taking substances that are the right amount, going at a correct timing for things, and not overwhelming your body and not making things worse, okay? Rainbow Body wants to know, is vinegar okay on a hot plate in a bedroom? And Vinegar Blue Sky is here. Good to see you. And he answers and says, vinegar on a hot plate will work, but best to have it outside or near a window. So thank you so much, Vinegar. Thank you for teaching me the ways of vinegar. And that's normal for me now. And I would say, like, yeah, you probably don't want to like boil too much vinegar inside of your home with the windows closed, because I think that really will irritate your sinuses and probably irritate your pets. If you have cats or dogs, you have to be really careful about what you put into the air for them. So do that only with the windows open. And what I find is the best thing to do is boil the vinegar outside. Put the little tea ramekin outside. And also, like I do it and it seems really powerful, but I think also like if you get a bunch of people in one neighborhood or one locality doing this, it's also really good. So it's good to get your neighbors or community members on board. And vinegar is really quite affordable, non-toxic, easy to work with, and I just think it's a very safe thing to do. Like a kind of like, couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt. Try it out. I think it will do really well. And Avril says, my apartment is gridded with organites in the corner of every room. Good job. And that is also what I have done with my apartment. I have organites kind of like on the front concrete area in front of my home and around my home, so that way I'm kind of like, protected against the other inhabitants and all of their Wi-Fi's and things that are there. And then also I have some around my bedroom area. And then, you might have some that you wear or that keep near you. And I always have my protectant little purple crystals that are with me. So I think that organite can really help. As a total aside, like not chemtrail specific, but I used to have like a really old car that was from 2004, right? So it's like 20 years old. And my same friend, Arlene, that had given me those pyramids. And also organite is best when gifted, much like sage. It is best when gifted to someone. So if you want to know where's a good place to get it, I highly recommend checking out online Mitch the orgone donor, not organ donor, orgone donor, because he's very much of the mentality of gifting organites to places that need it. And his stuff is very powerful and wonderful. But sorry, chemtrails protection aside. So I had this old car. You can imagine like the rust is what's holding the car together. Right? But I have since subsequently gotten a newer used car. But I used to have like these 4 organites from my friend, and I had them kind of like in the 4 doors of the car. And I'm telling you, those things, those organites, helped me to get excellent gas efficiency. That car was way more gas efficient than it should ever have been. And it stuck together even when it was like technically supposed to be dead on arrival and not drive anymore. That car stuck together for a very, very long amount of time. So put organites in your car. I am so very, very serious about this. I also feel like it was very protective in terms of keeping me safe while I'm on the road, but especially for gas and fuel efficiency and helping to deal with corrosion and other mechanical wear and tear. And so I didn't know like what your cars are shaped like, but my car has kind of like little drinks containers in the doors. Put organite in the drinks containers. That's it. And Mitch, the organ donor, I think is a wonderful business to support if you are interested in getting some. Yeah, and Vinegar Blue Sky invites us to check out Vinegar Blue Sky on YouTube and Telegram to learn about the various ways you can combat the sea trails. I highly, highly recommend connecting with Vinegar Blue Sky, and they're also a very positive person who is doing good things in the world. Because in case you haven't gotten what I was saying about like the idea of gifting organite and the intention behind different things, these things really are based in intention, and we're going into levels of like what is magic and what is DNA influence of time events. I talked about these malignancies and these materialistic scientists of the fictional realm. They have sometimes ignorance, but sometimes they have malevolence as their intention. And I would encourage you to do everything you're doing with the highest intention. And that is part of how you break these spells. So when we talk about Mitch being a gifter, like he might give you, you might get some of these little pucks or whatever, you can gift them to a ahem type of tower. And you can just place them at the base of an ahem type of tower. And it really does help. The energy and intention of being like, oh, like the earth needs a gift to make things feel better here. Let's put this over here. So I've done that quite a lot. Sometimes I got different little inexpensive organites and I would put them places and bury them, just leave them as a gift. You're just helping the earth. And I've also done that. Like I've lived in various different places and I'm like, oh yeah, like this place needs some gifting. And so it's very powerful when you place a piece of organite, like at the base of a tree, even if you're not going to live there for forever, put the organite there. It's going to help that tree. It's going to help that whole entire area, that whole entire garden. I'm going to get back on track with what's going on DNA, but I have a cool story. Okay. So a member of this class sent me some beautiful stuff from Mitch when I first moved back to Ojai. And we had been having a historic level of drought in my community. Like the lake that is the water for our community is called Lake Casitas. And it was down to 23%. It looked so pathetic. It was like a tiny little puddle. And everyone here was like really conserving water, very worried about the community, very worried about whether we could still live here because it looked like maybe we wouldn't have enough water to be able to sustain the people that lived here. And so I got back to town after living for a year very unhappily in San Diego. And I took one of these copper rods that was filled with organite and I put that into the local park and also a couple of these organite pucks at the base of some of these trees that are in the park. I'm up there with Tiki all the time and we know those trees. And so I gifted the trees with the organ. I'm like, oh, you clearly need some of this and you need some of this, all right? And then that winter, we had the most rain. They call it like 100-year event. It was so unlikely. It had not rained that much in the past 100 years. And it filled up the lake to like 89%. And people thought it was a big, giant miracle. And I emailed Mitch and I was like, Mitch, like you saved our town. And it's not the only time that's happened. It happened with my friend who got it for me. He was in Arizona, another famously arid place. And then the next winter, we also had not a 100-year event, but also another blessed winter where it then filled up our lake to 100%. And we have enough water security now to live for like the next 50 years. It got that much water in 2 years. So he totally improved the lives of so many people by what he created. And so that's like, just think about like the intention when people are making organites. It's not always like sallying forth with a sword to kind of like cut off the head of your enemy, even though it's fair to have that level of combative energy against certain things. But with some other things, it's very, very effective to give the supportive, loving, nourishing energy of let's give energy to the places on the earth that need it, and watch how that is transformative in a nourishing way, being able to sustain community. So very, very beautiful, good stuff there. I need to hydrate because also it's like 100 degrees out today. It's very, very hot, and I definitely feel like my home right now. Okay, so now we need to talk about DNA and FRL. Hope you guys still have mental energy for this. This is important stuff. All right, let's go to sharing. And you know, I always organize my screen meticulously, but then it doesn't always show up for you when I try to share things. These are my notes. I'm sorry, let me just get this out of here for privacy's sake. Don't look, because I always try to protect people's identities. Okay, first up, this is not my imagery. And I don't know how much we can take things literally because of, you know, the scientific limitations of viewing the Snoopy sweater. But I think that this is a fair little cartoon to look at how this is what supercoiling is. Beginning with one thread that is like one piece of yarn, and then watching how the yarn winds around these little protein structures that are called histones, and then how they go into more complex winding structures. This is where you want to know. This is where you start to get the toroidal shape. I'm holding up my little sculpture in the thumbnail in case it's too small for people to see, or you're on your phone. But the red sculpture is a torus. And I have to put my water down or I'm not going to spill it. Key point for all things lasagna. Burn this into your memory, everyone. Any place where you have a torus or a toroidal energy field, you can transform it into flying rainbow lasagna through the addition of an extra dimension or an additional degree of freedom. So in the natural, unfettered supercoiling behavior of DNA, as DNA is at times weaving itself into these complex chromosomal structures, in a certain level of weaving, the DNA creates a donut-shaped structure. Now let's move to some of these pictures over here. And within that donut-shaped structure, you can make a flying rainbow lasagna. So if you can imagine where I have this spring-like stretch over here, that's like what I just showed you in the cartoon. DNA is starting to coil up into what looks like stacked up donuts. And when you flying rainbow lasagna, what you do is oscillate energy through those stacked up donuts. And it makes it possible to rearrange the letters of the donuts. None of this is arbitrary. So again, not going to get neon green eyes or giant saber-toothed teeth or something like that. Saber teeth. You will not become a saber-toothed human. You will optimize who and what you are supposed to be. And here is another aspect. So this is from a screenshot from my actual, recorded whiteboards. Maybe we should start with this one because it shows very, very well how you have the toroidal structure here. And when you start to move that structure in a higher dimensional aspect, it vibrates and oscillates and creates the flying rainbow lasagna structure. So the skin of the torus, as you're moving it in a higher dimensional structure, you're taking some of the letters from this position down here and some of the letters from this position up here. And what you're doing is combining them together to write a new story. And that's really important because maybe the story that you received from either your ancestors or cultural projections and impositions was a story about disease or the inevitability of death. And on the very, very basic level, you can rewrite those stories. And those are just cellular stories. But you can also write new stories about your beyond your biological potential, your consciousness potential, your spiritual potential, your creative potential, and even what you can do and what you can make as a superhuman, not even as a regular human. Okay. So you're going to achieve your optimum levels of who you are, and then you're even going to be able to be greater than just a very, very healthy human. Here, what I'm showing is a very innovative way to use flying rainbow lasagna as what I call a genetic placeholder. So DNA doesn't just unfurl itself like a type of scroll that is opened up to be read. Sometimes it unzips itself, just like the zipper that is on the front of your sweat jacket. And when it does so in order to create the RNA copies so that the guys can get their sushi, their soy sauce all over it. This yellow line here represents the RNA, the copy, the Xerox of the stuff that's going to go out to the work site, okay? So this DNA unzips itself as a natural aspect of its genetic behavior. When you fly rainbow lasagna, and you are an expert at this, when your DNA is unzipped, you can put lasagna in the middle as a higher dimensional placeholder. So when your DNA is unzipped, it's only supposed to stay unzipped for a little bit amount of time and then zip itself back up again. If you unzipped your DNA and kept it unzipped too much, you might die. And if you unzipped all of your DNA everywhere, you would definitely die, because what it would do is essentially put you into a quantum indeterminate state. It would be like everything is happening, nothing is happening. We don't know what's going on in time. And you would become like, I don't want to say Schrodinger's person, but you would be like a non-viable construct. We wouldn't know what's going on with you. Like everything is happening, nothing is happening. You would go kaput. So there has to be some stability that is used to give formfulness to your DNA when it is unzipped. And that formfulness is the flying rainbow lasagna. And you guys know from me that this is, I'll go back to my face so I can gesture and show you this here. This is an active oscillation. So this isn't a hard edge like static object. This is the end result of something that's jumping. So in your DNA naturally unzips itself, splits itself apart, and then what you can do is put the lasagna there. And that lasagna is an energy pattern, not a physical sculpture. And the energy pattern is the end result of this oscillation of time. And what that does is stabilize the DNA in its unzipped form. And in its unzipped form, usually the DNA teeth of the zipper are forced to dance with their dance partners. Like this guy's always going to dance with this guy. They've always danced with each other for forever. And they're bored with each other. When they dance, when they do-si-do, they're like, you again, grab your partner, do-si-do. Like, I've done this with you a million times. I'm very bored with you. And same thing with this guy down here, with this guy over here. But when you fly rainbow lasagna, you can create new dance partners. Like you can connect this guy over here with this guy over here. And this guy over here can now connect with this guy over here. This is how you rewrite the book with you. And this is way beyond anything that science can perceive or that science can like give an F about. I can't even say enough bad things about the mythological, fictional, scientific mind state of the fictional world of crapitude that many fictional people live within. But they are most definitely not interested in higher dimensional encyclopedic truth. And they're only interested in things that they can mechanize, exploit, industrialize, and use to diminish consciousness. And flying rainbow lasagna is a tool for consciousness freedom. It is a tool for you to be able to transcend the genetic mutilations and limitations placed inside of your body so that you can be your exalted self. And when you are your exalted self, you recognize and claim your own empowerment, your own responsibility. That means your direct connection to time and to the behaviors of time and to how much you are creating, generating, and sustaining in terms of events in time. And you can even pave the road in front of you. I talk about this in my Tuesday dance group. What we're going to do before we dance is to have some intellectual intentions then when you're in your actual dance, what you're doing is not just rearranging what are the ingredients that are given to you in time, but you're even generating and creating new events. And that's like, imagine if you looked on a menu, you're in the restaurant of the universe, the restaurant at the end of the universe. That's a book, very silly. But you don't like anything on the menu. You're like, I hate all of the things that are on the menu here. It all looks bad. It all looks like death and dismemberment and disease and things I don't want to have happen to me. Like, I think I'll write a new recipe. And the new recipe is like, my body is healthy, my planet is not destroyed, pathogens and malignancies all go away, and I live a positive, happy life. And they'll be like, give this recipe to the chef. This is what I want to experience. And the chef gets your recipe. It was like, okay, order up, let's make this happen. So that is your prerogative. And you are the chef of the universe too. So you're not just the clientele waving your diamonds and requiring things. Like you're actually the chef too, and you're kind of in partnership with yourself to make these things happen. But that is completely your prerogative because you are the experiencer. If you don't like what's on the menu, you can make something different. In terms of timeline mechanics, again, say my fingers are like timelines, and you're looking at these timelines, and you're like Frogger, and you're gonna jump from log to log, and you're like, I don't like any of these logs. These are all bad logs. They all contain event structures that I don't like nuclear war, zombie apocalypse, whatever. They outlaw ice cream or something else bad happens. And kind of like any of these realities. You have to pave a new road, create a new reality. And you do that through these mechanics of your DNA, but it's not a patch or industrialized process where someone can just be like, okay, light switch on, create some more DNA structures, light switch off, now you're back to normal. No, it is a behavior and it is something that you must cultivate. So in order to do the flying rainbow lasagna dance, it's not a simple on-off switch. You have to live a lasagna lifestyle. As I spoke to you about how experts do star travel, it's actually much more efficient to get a bunch of metal and smelt it and forge it and make a metal space capsule and put on your space diaper, get all of your food into toothpaste tubes, and then blast off on a candle of solid or liquid oxygen or whatever. Blast off and explore space. That's actually easier than cultivating your full entire body presence and becoming a master, mastering the super purified water structure that's inside of your nuclei and your mitochondria, mastering your genetic behavior, and becoming capable of eating pure light and developing a connection and a rapport with the entire stellar network, and then flying, going through a solar portal. It's actually way more expensive to do that and way more difficult in terms of your effort or what is required. So same thing with your DNA and your lasagna dance. It actually is something where you have to devote all day long to being able to do your lasagna dance. And that means that, when you wake up in the morning and you're going through your routine, you're doing all these different things like your food, you are optimizing for your lasagna dance, and your mind state and your music and your unstudied genetic behavior. And then when you actually here I have my dance mat. I have it down almost all the time, so I can always dance in a moment. But when you put down your space and you're prepared to actually do the lasagna dance, then you're like, okay, now I'm consciously focusing on doing the lasagna dance, but I'm taking all of that energy and motivation and things that I've cultivated from the other moments of my life, and I am unleashing it in that moment. And so that's why you have to kind of get a running start. You got to do a warm up. You kind of got to get out of your mental state. So you have to cultivate a mind state of non-linear expression with time. You have to get out of your scheduled mind. You have to get out of your laundry list of things you have to do. It's very, very difficult to be like, well, I have 5 minutes to lasagna, and then I have to do this, and then I have to get my laundry out of the laundry maker in 45 minutes, and then I have to drive here and be here at 7:15. It's very, very difficult to do lasagna when you have a severely scheduled life, because the schedule is depicting and defining your relationship with time. And if your life is not within your control, like if you have a very scheduled existence where you're like, my kid's school, I have to do it at this time, my work, I have to do this at this time, whatever, some TV show, you have to watch at a certain time. There's like none of your time is your own. And it's very, very difficult to be like, okay, universe, like I want to dance right now, but I can't because I have to hop in the car to be someplace at 7:15. It's very, very hard because the universe is like, hey, it's time to lasagna. So the positive teaching is when it is time to lasagna, drop everything and do your dance. Honestly, do your effing dance. That's why I have my mat down at all times, because when it is time to lasagna, I don't even have a minute. Be like, oh, let me put down my dance mat. Let me this, let me that. Like, I just dance. That is my life. And it's because timing is everything. That's another thing. If you can burn it into your brain, timing is everything. And that means that it's not okay to be like, well, even though my inner director tells me I need to lasagna right now, I'm going to wait 5 hours, then I'll lasagna later. Like, no, you lasagna when the inner recipe tells you that you need to do that. If you're a member of my Tuesday dance group, please know you can effectively connect to our group dance, even if you're not there at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. That is the essence of non-locality. So that means that anytime that you're doing your dance or in any place that you're doing your dance, you can connect with my dance because what do? Fold the fabric of space-time. Where's my magical piece of paper? Hold on, guys. Let me see if I can find it. I have it over here. Fold the fabric of space-time from last week. Like, here's one person lasagnaing in Ireland, and here's me lasagnaing in California, and we're going to fold the fabric of space-time. So it's as if he's lasagnaing right here with me. And that's just a very, very, edited or simplified. That is a simplified version. Because what if here's lasagna on Tuesday, and then here's a person doing the lasagna dance on Friday. But if you are non-local, you know what you do? Fold the fabric of space-time so that Friday touches Tuesday. So we can have Ireland touches California, Friday touches Tuesday, and so many other cool things. All of that is non-intellectual. All of that is not part of the rational mind or the rationalist mindset. So you have to, in many ways, not only optimize your life in being able to do flying rainbow lasagna as a genetic dance, not only optimize your life by like being open to those spontaneous moments when you have to lasagna, but also to move beyond linear thinking and linear projections that have been culturally imposed upon you. So I don't know if you guys can remember, like when you maybe were a little child, if you can remember before you could read a clock and you kind of didn't know what time it was. Like you just woke up in the morning and you just felt like I'm awake. And then you didn't know what time it was, but maybe someone started to teach you about what time it is because you're like, Mommy, like, is Sesame Street on yet? And she would say, no, it's not going to be on until 10 a.m. or until 4 p.m. And you're like, when is whatever, the Muppet Show going to be on? You have to wait until 7 p.m. And then you start to learn that things happen at certain times. And then you also start to learn the difference between the moment now and something that is early and something that is late. Because you'll say, like, Mom, is it time for the Muppet Show yet? And she'll say, no, honey, later. And you're like, oh, I have to wait. It's not now, it's later. So you develop a sense of linear time, stuff that happened and stuff that's you're anticipating, as opposed to being totally in the moment now. So you want to decolonize your mind. You want to decolonize your posture. You want to decolonize everything about you and get out of that scheduled linear mind state where you are completely in the moment now. And some people need to use molecular helpers in order to do that. Like some people, when they are tripping out on different hallucinogens, that's when they feel like they are fully in the moment now. But I'm not. I told you it's a shark-infested garbage fest out there, and you don't want to be on tripping right now. But you got to somehow get out of your linear, rational projection overlay mind and back to your primal, original mind, which is your animalistic state. So my little dog is over here. And she definitely does comprehend time, and she knows the word wait. Like when we're at the sidewalk and we're going to go across, when you press the cross button, the mechanical voice there, it says, wait, 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 and we sit there and we wait, right? So she definitely knows that word. And then when it's time to go across, I say, okay, now we go across. But mostly, and of course, like she's very intelligent, she's an animal, she has memories, but most of the animals are in the moment now. And that is something that's positive about them. They are not stuck on the past and they are not anticipating the future, that they are mostly very present at the moment now. And we as humans should reclaim that beautiful animalistic aspect to our nature. When you are fully invested in the moment now, you're actually fully empowered to write the new recipe of series of events that you would actually like to participate in, as opposed to bad time events that are on the menu that you don't want to be a part of. So when people are in extreme crisis, it could be a health crisis, or it could be like an impending car wreck or something like that. Sometimes people go into a timeless state where they're like either time slowed down or time stopped. And that is because they're in a, like I said, the word already, crisis, a very severe situation where they need to try to fix something right away. And I know a couple of people that have shared their moments, their stories, their power stories with me. So one I've already shared in this class many times. She's a lovely person, but she's not here this semester, but she was here many years ago. She was driving to her job at the farmer's market on the highway, and she said that she saw a car that was veering into her lane, and she totally expected the collision. And she was like, this was not a good moment. And time slowed down. And what she did was she did some fancy flying rainbow lasagna time harmonics. And she saw the two cars overlap, but not smash into each other. Then she found herself ahead of the other car on the road, not smashed up, and somehow on the best timeline. She did some pretty fancy maneuvers so that she would not get smashed up and she would still be alive and healthy and vital. And I know another person who was talking to me once about, she's since passed on, but she had severe cancer and she was in the hospital and she was having all these different treatments and she felt like she was slipping away and like she was not going to be here for very much longer. And she kind of went into this slow motion, higher dimensional state where she was like talking to herself. She was like, but there's so many things I haven't done yet. Like I haven't done this and I haven't done this and I haven't done this. And she had a very profound dream. I'm actually getting chills as I tell you this, to become a jazz musician. She had a lot of musical potential that she had never explored. She had been a mom. She had done all these different things. She's like, and I never became a jazz musician. And in that moment, she wrote a different story on the menu of life. Instead of dying in a hospital bed, she wrote the story of recovering from her cancer and then going to Berklee School of Music. She emphasis did it. She recovered from her hospital bed, got a scholarship to Berklee School of Music, which is like one of the most prestigious jazz conservancies in the world, and became a very highly trained musician and lived for many years. And then eventually she did pass on. But I think that that's pretty amazing that she got herself a bunch of extra time. And key point is fulfilled the dreams that were on her menu of life experiences that had not yet been fully activated. So you don't have to be this far apart from the membrane of death to make these life corrections. You can be this far apart from the membrane of death and sense it coming. You're like, you know something? This is like 10 years in the future. I'm not that unhappy with my marriage or my job or my this or my that, but you know what? I haven't done this or that. That's really important to me and I need to do it. And you start to write those potentials into reality, and then the resources come to you and the people come to you and the opportunities come to you, and then you are changed from being pointed at the membrane of death because you are fulfilling your true potential in life. So to synopsize this, your DNA and the optimization of your DNA is non-arbitrary, and it goes beyond the shape of your body, the health of your body, or the appearance of your body. It also goes into your relationship with time, the events of other organisms, and the events of reality structure. And how does this relate to planetary ascension? Because all of us, as an entire group on this planet right now, are moving away from the concept of the inevitability of death and away from the concept of catastrophism, which is the sense of the whole entire world is going to die. And that's how something new happens, like some kind of phoenix event. And we are building the recipe or creating the time roads for experiencing profound renewal and the capacity for healing. yourself and your whole entire social structure, and also everything that's in the environment here, because everything, squirrels in the park have hydrogels, like everything is suffering here on a profound level. It's not just human DNA that has been distorted or diminished in the fictional realm by the fictional malignancies. It's really been so many different aspects of our beautiful world of nature and of animals. Definitely dogs and cats and, you know, domestic animals, but even what wildlife and wild creatures are very, very affected by this too. So DNA is a bridge of light. I talked about this in my notes, and this is accurate throughout all of our levels of being. Still accurate. DNA is a bridge of light. Your bodies were made to be a perfect conduit from the world of mathematical potentials, like stuff that isn't stuff yet, that's just a bunch of numbers, to the world of stuff. Your body is meant to be the bridge that makes stuff happen, potentials into stuff through you. And the hijacking and diminishment of your DNA and your perception and your free will has meant, that's terrible grammar, but ended up creating a world where all of the best potentials did not flow through you into the best realities. Some very, very flawed potentials were able to be expressed through you into flawed realities. And now if you want to live in an awesome paradise of unflawed realities, you got to not only fix your DNA, but you got to fix you as a conduit, as a bridge. And that is what you do with flying rainbow lasagna. It restores you to this perfect connector of the world of pure light and abstractions into the world of matter. And that is what I talked about last week in class when I talked about Einstein's equation that puts matter and spirit or energy in constant dualistic opposition. Energy is on this side of the equation, my face is the equal sign, and then matter is on this side of the equation. E equals matter times the speed of light squared. And these are in constant dualistic opposition. But what if you are able to put them in partnership? Energy plus matter on this side of the equation. And then what has to be on this side of the equation to balance it out? Class, you're all very smart, studied hard. What's the answer? Infinity. Yes, infinity. Answer is infinity. Your brains are not too tired to answer. Infinity. So the bridge of light that is flying rainbow lasagna, when your DNA, sorry, say it better. The bridge of light that is your DNA, when you're in the activity known as flying rainbow lasagna, is the combination of spirit and matter, or energy and matter, and it's the equivalent of infinity. It's the equivalent of an infinite amount of energy or an infinite amount of potential to be able to accomplish these things. And all of that might seem non-rational or post-rational. It's not for the rational mind to comprehend. And hopefully the malignant scientists have no interest in it, because I don't want them to try to hijack or poop all over this amazing thing. I used to be like, no, I want to tell them all about it and be very, very innocent. And now I'm like, no, this is not for you. You go away. I'm talking to these good people in this class over here. I'm not talking to any of these malignancies. Because I know that they would be like, oh, like cool lasagna you got there. Is there some way that we can use it to destroy the world? And I'm like, no, there really is not. And please also know that there are inherent fail-safes to flying rainbow lasagna, that if scientists did want to try to study it and dissect it and exploit it and use it in some way, that the more that they focus their observership on lasagna, the more that they get the information that they should not exist, that they are things that need to go to entropy. So you, class, as people and organisms that actually should exist, the more that you are exposed to lasagna concepts, lasagna energy, and the more that you embody it, the more that you exist. It exacerbates your inner tendencies to exist and the parts of you that are eternal, that should and shall continue to exist. But if anything is an organism, organization, or a structure that should not exist, exposure to the flying rainbow lasagna makes it not exist harder. And that is what I would wish for any of these malignancies that studied or were exposed to lasagna in any way, that they would be like, oh, the more that I look at lasagna and consider its impact on reality, the more I recognize I don't exist. Goodbye forever. And that is what I would wish for them. This has put me into huge levels of conflict, the dark magicians that are here, because they like their status quo. They like their recipes of how to get stuff done. They don't like it when I shake up the salad dressing of the universe by doing flying river lasagna because it invalidates all of their recipe structures. And they don't like my genetic music, and they have tried to do everything they can to stop me and to eradicate me. That is why I wrote the album called Attempted Eradication of a Light Entity. It was from that era of my interactions with them. But of course, I'm very powerful, and lasagna is a needed augmentation to preserve the fabric of space-time. So what I have done is found effective ways to counter them